Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Juubi Naruto meets Hera Olympians. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Juubi no Shinju and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. And as long as I'm here. Some question about the omniscient I put. This is my response. Omnipresence is like covering your will over a planar world. Yes, Naruto could do that, but tell me, if you were a god, or more specifically, a group of gods, and your will already saw over the plane, and suddenly, an unregistered or unknown presence appears. A presence with immense power. And you were a group of trigger-jumping, arrogant, territory-obsessive gods, and you sent someone appearing in your property with a lot of power, and you didn't know who they were, what would you do? I figure the Greek gods would take Naruto's presence as a threat and go all out to get rid of him. Naruto would want to keep his existence under Zeus's radar for the moment while he does what he does. That's why Naruto is coating himself in nature energy, bending himself with the energy of the earth to become invisible. Recon clones are to be used as a substitute for his omniscience. For the moment. And his way of omniscience is special. He can sense people through their emotions, through their hearts. Add that with Shinjutsu and he can sense nearly everything around the world, or at least to a certain radius, depending on his reach and/or state. I tried to explain as best I could. If there is still issue about it, I will rethink on using it. Please understand that I'm taking the safe route here. Naruto just can't go all god mode in this dimension without causing a war. He wouldn't care, being immortal can change a person, but doesn't want to get in trouble with Hikari, Yami, and Shin. Now, onto the story. But the deadly bright light piercing through the window blinds and small opening of the dark red curtains, laying upon a lump on the queen-sized bed, the lump groaned. It tried to escape the light, but it was persistent to awaken the person hiding under the covers. It was even worse for the person when the alarm clock joined in and blazed aloud. Muttering a curse under their breath, an arm shot out from the covers and slammed down on the clock, shutting it off, but also denting it a bit. Not that the person cared. They had plenty of spared from past accidents. But the groan, the person sat up, the covers falling of them to show it was a man, in about his mid-20s. His wild, shaggy sun-kissed blonde hair was all over the place as it reached down to the base of his neck. Opening his mouth wide to let out a big yawn revealing his long, sharp-looking canine teeth he stretched, a soft crack sounded at his spine and shoulders. Blinking his ocean blue eyes, he stood up, idly reaching up to scratch the bold, sharp whisker-like marks on his cheek. Sharp, narrowed eyes going downward, he saw it was 5:45 a.m. in the morning. The girl should be waking up soon. He thought before he made his way to his in-room bathroom to brush his teeth and shower fast. Once done, he dressed in a plain black t-shirt and gray sweatpants. Ready, he made his way down to the kitchen of his two-story house. It was similar to what people would call a bachelor pad, with a high-class and rich design, but still comfortable. It was spacious enough to move around comfortably, especially with a single father and 3 children. 3 daughters, to be exact. Starting on his morning coffee first, he reaching into the cabinet, he pulled out his special cup. It was a handmade coffee mug the girls made for him in art class. On the front was world's greatest dad. It was his second most valued treasure, below his daughters. As his coffee was being made, he decided to make pancakes for his girls today, along with bacon strips and eggs. So as he pulled everything he would need out, along with the ingredients, he let his mind wander, hand moving subconsciously. So much had changed in the later years of his life, more than he ever thought. At the climax of the Fourth Great War in the Elemental Nations, no previous battle could come even close to matching the one against Gaia Otsutsuki. Not Pain's. Not Orochimaru's. Not Kabuto. Not even against Madara Uchiha. It was him and Sasuke against the mother who birthed the Sage of Six Path. The mother of all chakra. The self-proclaimed rabbit goddess. Even with the powers they gained from the old man, they were still being picked apart. He still had the scars to prove just how much of a self-entitled goddess she was. It was only through quick planning, shinobi instincts, and a shitload of luck that they even survived. Still, at the end, they were able to surprise Gaia enough to take her by surprise, to which they used the opportunity to seal her away. At first, they were going to seal her along with her pet Zetsu away in a moon. However, Naruto knew that there might one day come a time where the seal would fail, as all seals do, and she would be free. At worst, at a time where there were no more shinobis around. Leaving for her the perfect opportunity to take over the world. Naruto Yuzumaki could not have that. And so, he did the only thing he could do. While Sasuke had her trapped, he used the only technique that would help them. The technique he knew would be very risky, but he had no other choice. With the help of Kurama, the combined chakra of the Biju, and his Yuzumaki sealing knowledge, he used the very technique the Sage of Six Paths used to seal the Juubi the monstrous Gaia within his body. He knew it was a suicidal move, which would no doubt lead to his death, his human body unable to handle the enormous supply and intensity of the Shinju, the primordial being of his world, chakra within the demigoddess, but he had no choice. As Sasuke distracted the primordial chakra being, Naruto got ready. When the opening came, he struck and, taking Kaguya by surprise, activated the Biju chakra-powered seal he created around the field. For a moment, it would have seemed that the plan had failed as nothing had happened after the large seal began shining. But soon, before the self-proclaimed goddess knew it, with a rueful shriek, she was sealed inside Naruto, with the Biju sealing her presence far into the corners and darkness of Naruto's mind and soul, hopeful to never be seen again. Immediately, the after effects came. Pain unlike anything he had ever felt before, even more painful than taking a chidori to the chest twice surging through his body. He gave a sad smile, knowing what was to come. He then, much to the shock of the Biju, released them from him, leaving only his soul, and that of Kaguya. Why should he take them out with him? And so, saying a tearful goodbye to his team and the tailed beasts within him, especially Kurama, he closed his eyes, expecting to close them for the last time. Naruto expected a painful implosion as his body was destroyed, or something. But instead, the usual Yuzumaki impossible happened. He was in Yuzumaki, the cousin clan of the Senju, who were the descendants of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, who was the son of Kaguya Otsutsuki, who was of the shockingly enough Otsutsuki alien race. A race that had the ability to adapt to anything. Increased brain power for thinking out of bad situations or bodily adaptations, which was what allowed to Kaguya to be able to gain the ability of chakra in the first place from the Shinju fruit. The sudden surge of Kaguya's extremely powerful and potent chakra in his body actually awakened his Otsutsuki genes. And so, as the first chakra source made spread through his body, the genes worked hard at adapting his body to it. All of Kaguya's chakra, the chakra of the Shinju, as well as the chakra the old man gave him, began to become his. It was painful, oh Kami, it was painful. It felt like his body was tearing itself apart and mending back together. Bones shifted, moved, changed. And it wasn't just with Kaguya. As the chakra of the tailed beast still within him also adapted to his gene and body. He was becoming something else. He didn't know how long it was, but soon, he awakened from a sudden unconsciousness, with his team around him. When he stood up, he immediately saw the changes. First and foremost, he had 10 black, long, fox-like tails swaying behind him. He also had 2 sets of horns. Short ones sprouting from his forehead, pointing upward like sage Jiji. And a longer set from the top of his head like Kaguya. His hair had turned silver white, like Kaguya's. His chakra felt stronger, flexible and moldable like clay. And his eyes were also the ones the Juubi, Kaguya, and post-Madara had. The Rin Sharingan. As everyone was shocked at what happened, they were even more shocked when with a dreadful and hollow aura that overtook the plane forcing everyone to their knees, the Shinto deity of death itself, the Shinigami, appeared. Before anything could be said or done, the deity spoke, explaining why it was there and what had happened. Apparently, Naruto, with the work of his Otsutsuki genes, adapted molecularly to the chakras of Kaguya and the Biju in him. It transformed his body, shifting it so it could better use the combined energies. To put it simply, it turned Naruto Yuzumaki into a god. Taking the place of the, now former, primordial being, the Shinju. It muttered something about the fates making sure that the balance wasn't broken. Apparently, the universe needed a Shinju, as it was a god being. And with the large tree gone, as killing Kaguya would also kill it as her chakra was what kept it around, someone needed to take its place. And the unlucky volunteer was one Naruto Yuzumaki. I guess it wasn't so bad. I did get the cool ability to travel through dimensions, with permission from Kami-chan and Yami-chan of course. Now I can go nearly anywhere I want. He thought with a grin. While he had matured greatly since the battles of the war, he still held some of the old parts of his childhood. Just then, he heard steps coming his way, making him smile. Knowing who it was, he turned his head and sure enough, he saw his first daughter coming his way, cutely rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Morning, little kit," he greeted. The girl yawned a bit. "Good morning, Papa," she muttered back. Sarah Yuzumaki was a young girl of 8 years. To him, she was a chibi version of her mother. She had curly, silky soft midnight black hair what reached her shoulders. She also had her mother's eyes, soft brown that hold a soft of maternal gentleness, but can become hard and vicious if angered. He nicknamed her Kit like a fox, because the time she smiled widely, with her eyes closed, reminding him of his own smiles. One of a sneaky fox. She was still wearing her light green pajamas, with small brown birds on them. Wiping his hands, he moved and picked her up, kissing her on the cheek. As usual, she pouted, muttering about how she was not a kid anymore, but he knew she inwardly loved being smothered. Nothing can escape his emotion sensing. It was still hard to believe he was giving such a precious gift. To an orphan like him, it was a dream come true. It had been 12 years since he began his new life as Naruto Namikaze, human father and hard-working man, and many centuries since he took the Shinju's title and became the Shinto god of peace, creation, salvation, and chaos, as well as being known as the Ashura no Kami, god of the 10 paths. Well, wasn't a god instantly. He needed to prove himself to the Shinto divine court before he could be awarded with the title. He also needed to learn to control his new and chaotic powers. It took much time, but he did it and gained a seat as a Shinto god. However, unlike the others, he wasn't linked to religion, as all gods were by mortals, and so he didn't die if people didn't believe in him. Well, religiously. As people knew who he was, his friends, family, and the entire elemental nations, though they were but a part compared to the whole universal Shinto religion. All he had keeping him from fading from existence was that he wasn't born a god, a very good loophole. It even gave him a free pass to travel through the universe, databao. Still, so much time has passed since the old Naruto had died in a sense. No longer was he the attention-seeking, loud, knuckle-headed kid he used to be in his childhood. Well, he wasn't loud anymore, and he didn't really care about the attention he drew to himself. Some would still call him a knucklehead, as well as idiotic, reckless, lazy, trigger-happy, destructive, and many other similar titles, but at least he wasn't a kid. His time as a god was quite interesting. He got the chance to explore space, visit other planets and meet interesting people species. He was glad that he was now omniscient, being able to understand and know everything that there is to know, a handy effect godlyhood granted him. Sure, he had to put an end to a few wars that got on his nerves and had to destroy a few planets, but on the bright side, he was able to spread his religion of Ninshu and encourage understanding and connections between one another across a couple of parts of space. Shinto wasn't his only religion either. He had stated earlier that he had begun his life as Naruto Namikaze 12 years ago, but this wasn't the first time he appeared on a planet with humans, such as this one for example. He had given the birth of another and quite popular religion mostly used in Asian states. I think they call it Buddhist or something like that. All he knew was that he had to reveal his Ashura form, a massive glowing golden figure with 3 faces and 6 arms a few times to stop wars, and from that he was praised as a god to many. He even taught a few about chakra many centuries ago in order to spread peace and balance. And he was glad to say that his children didn't taint his teaching, unlike his people did with Sage Jiji. Though, he didn't spread chakra around, merely giving it to 1 or 2 who merely used it for healing those in pain and not for violence. He had left this planet some time ago on assignment he was given by Hikari-chan and Yami-chan. So not only was he connected to the Shinto religion, but according to Hikari Haim, he has become the bridge to the Shinto pantheon, Buddhism pantheon, and finally, Hindu pantheon. Becoming the first god to be connected to multiple religions and not get split personality. Was he badass, or what? Officially, he first came back here on a vacation he could say. Unofficially, it was to oversee the humans, maybe cause some trouble, like the classic prankster he was. He was shocked when he first saw the large cities, something he hadn't seen last time he was here. However, the massive and heavy output of negative natural energy he was feeling covering the world nearly made him vomit. He could barely stay on his feet. It was one of the reasons he lives in the suburbs, as it was quiet and not too populated. He hated going to cities. They were too tight, filled with cranky people, and so many lights, seeing stars at night was practically impossible. Not to mention the air being filled with smoke and pollution. The worst city he'd gone to being New York City. Nothing by lust, greed, and more lust, at least at night. At day, it was a bit calmer. Still, he was a sage. He belonged in nature. It disappointed him at how these humans had turned out. He was just glad his children hadn't turned out like these people in America to an extent. However, he had to seal around 99% of his immense chakra, enough to still do his basic jutsu like clones, but still appear normal. It turned out, he didn't have a constant control of it and it would constantly leak out. Well, the people of his dimension could handle it a bit as they had adapted to chakra for centuries. The people of this world had zero experience and having a chakra source as heavy as his tower on them would instantly knock out, if not kill anyone within a 10-mile radius. And so, he had to draw restriction seals all over him, sealing just enough so no one died from being near him. Still, even with his powers being sealed, he was still at a high Jonin level. Not to mention there wasn't too big of a threat for him. Well, except maybe the Greek gods. Yeah, apparently this planet was as he liked to call it, god base. Meaning gods resided here instead of another plane of existence like his group, the Shinto gods did. From what he could sense, the Greek gods took base at the place known as New York City. He took care to not get detected by them. Turns out, there was some heavy air between the Shinto gods and Greek gods. He forgot what the feud was about. I think it was something about the seat of power as Yami-chan said. In the meantime, he took to getting acquainted to his vacation spot. He took classes on war tactics and theories, cooking, culinary, and a bit of business management. With the help of shadow clones, he was about to go to and graduate from 4 different collages as different people in just 2 years. It was extremely easy with the help of his shadow clones and human path. While he hated school, or learning in general, Jiraiya and Tsunade had beaten into him about the importance of knowledge gaining, especially when you were in some place you've never been before. Still, just because he wasn't a shinobi anymore, officially at least, didn't mean he was unpredictable. As in the span of 1 year and a half, he met, dated, and impregnated not 1, not 2, but 3 Greek goddesses. And not just any goddesses. But the big 3 divas. As Shikamaru would say, troublesome. Don't get him wrong and start calling him a perverted bastard because he wasn't. He met the 3 separately after some issues. He first met Sarah's mother when he was walking through the streets at night and saw her walking dizzily. She was a bit drunk and heavy on her feet. And by his too much of a hero for his own good conscience as Kurama called it, he helped her get back to her hotel, keeping away the creeps. Even Jiraiya would hate how the men in this world give into their lust too deep. After he was able to safely get her to her room, using the medical chakra training he had thanks to Tsunade and Sakura to clear her mind enough so she didn't unknowingly do anything too dangerous, he left her to sleep. It was only a few weeks later that he saw her again. He got into some trouble with the law as he got caught in the middle of a gang battle and got arrested. You try to help and this was the thanks you get. Sure, he could have used Jinjutsu to wipe their memories of the event, but they were in public and he still wasn't good at it and so gets sent to the city jail. He was shocked when he saw the woman again. Turned out she was a lawyer and remember him clearly enough when he helped her in her weakened state and didn't do anything. And so, she busted him out, clearing any charges. He tried to thank her as she was walking away, but found out that she was a bit of an ice queen as she gave him a glare, saying that their debts were clean and to never near her again. Still, she saved his ass and stopped him from causing too much as a scene, and Naruto Yuzumaki always thanks someone properly. And so, he found out where she worked as she left her hotel and made a surprise visit to her office. She was both shocked and angry when she saw him. But before she could tell him to leave, he shocked her when he held up a bouquet of flowers. I know you said to forget about even knowing each other, but I just had to thank you properly for what you did. That slightly melted her tough physique and reluctantly, she offered him a seat. They talked a bit about each other, their likes, dislikes. They even shared some liquor she kept in store as she looked like she needed it. And she began to open up. Turned out that she was married, but her husband had been having constant affairs. He was shocked and disgusted that a married man would even cheat on his wife, even more when the man knew his wife knew and didn't stop. It might have been the alcohol, as his alcohol tolerance had also decreased with his sealing, but he wanted nothing more than to find the man and torture him. However, he held himself back and focused on the now crying woman. He could never stand the sight of a woman crying and embraced her, comforting her. For the next hours, they two sat there on the floor, Naruto holding her as she cried. From then on, they would always hang out, be it for a drink of coffee or just walking through the parks. Soon, they were dating, which was surprising to him, as he didn't have much experience in the dating department. Sure, he had married before, but dating was limited, as the attraction was already there. He knew his nervousness showed as she would giggle with her beautiful voice, saying how it was alright and there was no need to be nervous. The weeks they were together were amazing, even his old crush on Sakura could never compare to the feeling he grew for this amazing woman, almost matching the level of love he had for Hinata and Shion. She was kind, gentle, and though showed a fierce temper at times, he only loved her more. However, all good things were not to last. As well she admitted she had the best time she ever had, she was still married and it was against her moral to cheat. When he questioned on why she would still be with a man who would just use her, she replied that she was someone who took the act of marriage as hard as life itself. And that while it hurt her to see her husband with someone else, she would honor their marriage even if he didn't. While greatly saddened by that and wanted to be selfish and see if there was a way for her to stay with him, as he didn't think he would ever fell love like he had with her again, he agreed. But before she would leave back to her bastard husband, the two shared one last, passionate night together. Strange thing was, that after she left, he sensed a sort of illusion over his mind, blocking certain memories. The memories of the woman. June. Even the Biju in him were affected as they were connected to him. Suspicious. It was easy to dispel the illusion. Now the question was, what just happened? There wasn't anyone in this world who could use chakra or possess superhuman abilities. No one. Except for gods. Looks like I just met my first Greek goddess. So sweetie, did you sleep well? Naruto asked as he placed the first pancake on a plate along with eggs and bacon and poured his coffee in the mug. Sarah gave him a smile as she sat on the seraphinite tiled counter. Yeah. I went to bed after I finished my homework. she said proudly, making him chuckle and ruffle her hair softly, making her pout. Sarah was the hard-working student of the family and the sort of the big sister, even though the girls were all the same age. Just like her mother, she likes to take authority, always making sure her sisters didn't cause trouble or that her lazy father didn't oversleep and all chores were done. She had good grades, adored by her teachers, even with the three having ADHD and dyslexia, but they inherited his knack of never giving up and worked as hard as they could. They tried to get her to act her age, to have fun, make friends, but knew it was what she wanted. As she saw it as just job as the oldest to take charge from when he was hard at work. Not that he worked too hard, as he could always create money from existence with his Banbutsu SMZM, creation of all things. He was set for life, and his eye of the moon-like Genjutsu put government satellites in the dark. Hey, well he absolutely hated that stupid plan of Kagaya. He saw the pros of casting a Genjutsu all over the world to hide your assistance from secret organizations. Fools thinking they could secretly watch him. To the world, he worked as an antique shop in the middle of the city, but in reality, he was building up his own spy network. A network of both human and monsters, which he took control of with his Rin Sharingan. Other times, he just teleports from place to place around the world, see new sights, go to his pocket dimension to train, or even travel to Tengoku, the Shinto heaven of his dimension, to see old friends and tell everyone about the girls. His daughters were in the dark of everything. They didn't know their father was a godlike being or that their mothers were Greek goddesses. He planned to tell them when they turned 12 on their birthday. That way he could take them to Tengoku and meet their grandparents. His Kachan had been grilling him about her finally meeting her granddaughters. Minato, while wanting to also meet his grandchildren, was willing to wait as he knew that knowing such big things too soon could do more harm than good. Finishing the first stack for himself, he got started on the second. There were some bowls with different topping and fruit. "You want blueberries, right?" he asked rhetorically, not needing to turn around to see his daughter drooling at the thought of her favorite, father's homemade blueberry pancakes. Just then, the two heard a thump was heard from upstairs. Knowing what it was, Sarah rolled her eyes with a groan, while as Naruto chuckled, his keen ears counting the rapid taps of tiny feet as they ran down the steps and made their way toward the kitchen. "Papa." A young child voice called out happily as she caught sight of her father. She ran toward him, hoping for a hug, when she suddenly slipped and fell on the floor. Her body sliding across the tiles, before slowing down, her head hitting the bar with a soft thud. The two blinked as they looked down on her. The girl groaned as she laid there. Sarah groaned at her sister's clumsiness as she got down from the stool and helped her up. "Chloe. I told you many times not to run on socks," she scolded. Chloe blinked a few times in a daze before she smiled widely. "I'm okay," she stated loudly, making Sarah groan at the volume and at her sister ignoring what she said. "Morning, Papa." She greeted Naruto, who chuckled at her as he moved from behind the table and picked up his daughter in a hug, one she returned happily. He was glad he lived in a house and not in apartments, so there would be no complaints and the walls were thick enough to muffle Chloe's hyperactive yelling, which she inherited from him. "Good morning, my little oak," he said as he kissed her on the cheek, making her giggle. Just like her other sisters, Chloe looked very much like her mother, with bits of him. Like her mother, she had pale cream skin, with long waist-length dark brunette, almost black hair that seemed to shine in the sunlight. She also had his ocean blue eyes and a chubby round face. She was wearing light blue pajamas with pink butterflies. While she looked like her mother, her personality was from him. As she was almost constantly having fits of giggles, was always on the move, not able to be still, not to mention she inherited his infamous love for pranking. He may or may not have shed a manly tear when he first found that out. She liked to have fun and be wild, much to her older sister's chagrin. She was a miniature female brunette version of him at his academy genin days. He met Chloe's mother while he was traveling through the eastern countries. It was during the summer times, as he was traveling through a barren countryside. He was training his medicine skills and poison skills and was looking for several rare plants located in Africa. Bad thing about the Banbutsu SMZM was that the caster needed to know about the components within the thing they wanted to create or else it'll come out terrible. So he had to find the plants himself. As he was walking, he came upon a lone farm. The crop was all dried out from no rain in weeks. The farmer's was standing out at the field, but he wasn't alone. With him was an extremely beautiful woman whose beauty was almost at the level of June. She was soft milk, white skin, and luscious long dark hair. Her chocolate brown eyes glowed with kindness and a gentle care for all things. She was breathtaking. But the thing that quickly caught his attention was her energy. It was a month after he last saw June and he discovered her title as a goddess. In that time, he did some studying. Neither he nor the tailed beasts knew of her being a deity until she put the illusion on them. It was seemed she had some sort of protection on her that prevented her energy signature from being sensed, probably from the other Greek gods. Luckily, Matatabi was the only one who passed through the illusion when it was first casted and recalled how it felt. It was one of authority, motherly, and homey. Some studying on Greek deities, and he soon discovered who the woman he loved with all his heart and soul really won. And boy, was he shocked. Hera, goddess of marriage, home, and family. Patron of women. And queen of Olympus. Wow, and he didn't think his luck would be so good. Then again, he was also in a sort of trial relationship with Kami, Yami, and Shiny back in his realm. Hirosenin would be proud. Anyway, even though the goddess had her energy hidden, it was still leaking at small, near invisible amounts, and though he didn't sense it at the time, as he was too used to sensing other people's energy, unconsciously he was now more aware and could now sense when there was a Greek god within his range. The thing was that something in him was demanding he approach this woman. It was his sage instincts and Senju blood. This woman had an energy and feeling about her that was of nature, with an ounce of death. Those hints immediately let him know who she was. Persephone, goddess of springtime and flowers, and queen of the underworld. I can already hear Hirosenin's voice. Gloating and crying something about me surpassing him in everything and banging hot-ass goddess wives, he thought, slightly embarrassed. Even the Biju were being calmed by her presence, similar to the effect of Mokutin, would release. She was explaining to the farmer how planting in the same spot over and over would only worsen the plants, added with the drought. The soil was already dried off nutrients and that needed to find another spot. Naruto decided to announce himself and stepping toward them, told them that while the spot might have run out of nutrients at the upper levels, there were still some deeper in the soil, as well as capture water sources. He told the farmer that he could still just dig up a spot around 5 to 10 feet, then refill the hole, as the soil with nutrients would get mixed up and moved to the top. Persephone was quite impressed with his agricultural knowledge, and so the two began to talk. He told her a half-truth story of his grandfather who traveled the world and even became a sage, who later taught him how to be one and even how to communicate with nature. Persephone was both surprised and impressed at this young man being a sage. In the eons past, sages were her followers, even though she wasn't a major god. Sages were powerful people, were able to connect with nature itself and hear the voice of Gaia, the primordial goddess of the earth. And so, the two hanged out for the rest of the summer. He even ate dinner multiple times at her place in the wooden house she built in the forest. Persephone was unknowingly being attracted by the natural energy Naruto coated around himself to hide his presence from the gods. Over the next few weeks, they two would meet up and hang out, getting to know more about the other. And while his heart still longed for June Hera, his heart soon began to beat for the nature goddess. Like with Hera, everything about her made him feel weak on the knees. Her warm smile, her laugh, the way she would blush when he flirted with her or when he placed a hand on her cheek, she was amazing. Unfortunately, there came a sense of deja vu as she soon spoke of not being able to stay much longer as she had to go back to her home country as she put it. He heard her mutter something about damn 6 months, which at first he didn't get until he remembered. He had read everything on Greek mythology after Hera and recalled about Persephone being forced to stay in the underworld every fall and winter, only being able to leave on summers and spring. Saddened, he wanted nothing more than to go down there and beat Hades to an inch of his eternal life, but held himself back. Doing so would only be war. Which he was totally fine with. Helluo. God of creation and chaos. But no, he didn't want to risk Kami-chan's and his mother's wrath by doing something stupid again. But before he could allow her to go back to her idiot husband, he gave her a night she would never forget. Appa. I want strawberry pancakes. Chloe told him as he sat her on her chair. Naruto chuckled and nodded. In 2 more minutes, he finished the blueberry stack and placed them on the table in front of Sarah. She drooled a bit at the sight but held herself back from eating. Rule number 3 of the Yuzumaki household. Everyone eats together and don't start until everyone was set. Shaking her head to knock out thought on devouring the pancakes like a wild beast, thus the Yuzumaki blood, she looked at her father. Dad. Did you sign the permission slip for my field trip? Her class was going on a trip to the history museum and she really wanted to go. Yes, honey. It's on the fridge. Naruto said as he grabbed the slip and put it on the table. Now, can you please go wake up your sister before you're 3 late for school? Sarah nodded and quickly went upstairs. The sooner everyone's on the table, the sooner she could eat her pancakes. Appa, can we have ramen tonight? Chloe asked with a wide Naruto trademark foxy grin. All 3 of his children inherited several things from him together, his love obsession for ramen, his special ability to make fast friends, the undying will to protect the things that are precious to them, and high metabolism. Each of his daughters also held a special, separate part of him in them. Sarah had her father, paternal grandmother, and mother's infamous anger, which no one wanted to mess with. Chloe had her father and paternal grandmother's wild nature and love for pranks. And his third daughter had his unique ability to instantly connect with people on a spiritual level, somehow know their problems through eye contact, as well as her mother and paternal grandfather's calm attitude and sharp strategic mind. He was proud of his girls. At first, he was terrified, having never been raised by his parents, but soon relaxed. Sure, he was raising 3 girls, with no mother, but he had the help of the Biju, and was knowledgeable with children enough. Back in the elemental nations, he had children with Hinata, Shion, Karen, and Anko. He and Hinata had a boy and a girl, Boruto or Bolt as the little Gaki liked to be called, and Himawari respectively. While him and Shion had a daughter, Moroku, after her mother. Karen had a boy named Nagato. And Anko had a boy named Mamashi. Yeah, him and Anko had been a surprise to everyone. Truth is, after the war, he was probably the only one who noticed Anko was missing. So, using his new sensor ability, he located her and teleported to her location. He had noticed that her energy was severely low and gave her some of his, as well as healing her injuries caused by Kabuto. After that, the two sorta grew close, and before he knew it, the crazy woman joined his little family. Though, he'd admit that her crazy antics kind of made her cute. Kurama teased him of secretly having a crazy lady kink. Him and Karen, well, there was not much to tell. While his fellow Yuzumaki had a crush on Sasuke, the team wasn't like him and could only handle one female, his wife Sakura. Not to mention the Uchiha didn't show any interest in Karen. It was lucky he even married Sakura, considering the asshole mostly traveled back in the EN, leaving Sakura and at times Naruto to raise and teach his daughter, Sarada. And with him gone, Karen turned her attention to the blonde god, recalling how Ramen his aura was from the time they met. And so, she tried many times to get attention, not that she needed to try so hard, as Naruto already liked her though as a friend at the time. And weeks later, with Hinata's permission, the two Yuzumaki cousins were dating and soon married. The time he stayed in his home with his family was great, he became Hokage for a few years before stepping down, seeing as he was already busy training his new Shinju abilities and spending time with his family. He passed the title to his young first apprentice, Konohamaru. Even though Naruto was immortal and his family grew old and passed, he enjoyed the times he had with them and after 100 years left, visiting them in Tengoku whenever he wanted. That reminds me, I should visit them again sometime this month. Hima-chan wanted to know what her new half-sister's been up to. He recalled when he first told his family about his daughters. There was a huge party, especially when he first showed them off when they were newborns. Even though Hinata, to an extent, Shion, her too, Anko, Karen, Kushina and Tsunade wanted to beat the mothers up for ditching him so suddenly when he needed them, he was able to calm them down. They knew he'd never and could never hold anger toward the goddesses as he loved them too much, even though the goddesses were also wives to the top 3 Greek gods. His heart will always beat for them, as it does for first wives. It just made the women want to beat up the goddesses even more, cursing them for what they thought is using Naruto's love. Not to mention it wasn't the first time he had children since he left to travel the space. What could he say? Gods tended to have high libidos. Hey, at least he always stayed by his wives' sides till their last breaths. He wasn't a playboy, just tended to get bored at times, and love was the best solution. He lost count on how many lovers he had, as time was meaningless to an immortal deity. But anyway, all was good, as Hinata and the other females helped him raise his girls when he went to Tengoku, though he later had to stop when they got older, as he didn't want to bring them to his secret life just yet. At best, the girls think it was all a dream. Smirking, Naruto winked at Chloe. Maybe. If you are able to stay out of trouble. He said with mirth, making Chloe pout. It wasn't her fault that teacher didn't see that bucket hanging on the doorway. Or that janitor who was hit by a balloon filled with fake puke. Or that mean girl who suddenly had green skin after she ate that apple she gave her. Completely not her fault. Placing the finished blueberry stack in front of Chloe, he got started on the last stack, this one with cinnamon. The girls' school began in 2 hours, enough time for them to eat, shower, and get dressed. As long as there were no more fights between them about who got the bathroom first. Girls. With his hearing that would make dog jealous, he heard a sharp yelp, yelling, and rapid taps against the tiled floor. He calmly picked up his coffee, summoning some minor fire chakra to heat up the now cold mug and took a sip, having finally finished the pancakes. He just knew he would need it. Soon enough, he saw Sarah walking back toward them, his third and final daughter behind her. The glare she was sending to her sister's back let him know he might get a headache very soon. Good morning, little Pearl. Did you rest well? He greeted and asked his daughter. Rubbing her sleepy eye, she nodded a bit before glaring at the satisfied Sarah. I did, until someone pushed me off the bed. Dad, she was mean to me. She accused, pointing at Sarah, who glared back at her. I was not. I tried to wake you up, but you just kept kicking me back. So I took things a different way. She argued back. She was not mean. She was a good girl who did as her father said. Yet, little Miss Princess was trying to make her look bad, like always. She would always try and meddle into her father-daughter time and try to hog their dad's attention. She may act like a goody two-shoes, but Sarah knew she was pure evil. Naruto sighed as his daughters argued, pressing their foreheads together hard. Deciding to ignore them for a bit, he looked at the side and his eye twitched a bit when he saw Chloe had discreetly take a bit of her pancakes when no one was looking. Seeing that her father had caught her red-handed, Chloe began sweating nervously as she looked like a caught deer, the fork still in her mouth. She was silent for a bit, wondering she would be able to escape fast enough with the plate. Unfortunately she knew her father would be able to easily catch the second she turned. He always does. Sighing, he knew that they were running out of time if they kept getting distracted like this. Alright, enough. He ordered sharply, making all three girls jolt tensely once they heard the sharp tone in their father's voice. It was the tone that, unbeknown to them, was Naruto's Hokage voice he used when commanding others. He only used that tone a few times on them. Either when they fought with one another or when they did something stupid and dangerous. And every time they heard that tone, scared them, as they knew they made their father the one and only parent who raised them sad or mad. He'd done so much for them, after all. Taking a breath, Naruto ran a hands through his head. It was too early for such troubles. Why can't his girls just get along? Sure, he encouraged rivalry, it was good and helped them get stronger, but did they really have to fight over everything? He wondered if he and Sasuke were as big of a headache like this to Kakashi. Nobody answered that. Girls, please. No fighting right now. Pearl, apologize to your sister for kicking her. And Sarah, apologize to your sister for pushing her off the bed so we can eat breakfast. Yes, San. The two muttered and turned to each other, bowing slightly. Gomenasai. I'm sorry, well they might be in the American state and acted like it, Naruto was sure to teach them age-old Japanese traditions. While he and his people were from another world, they were vastly similar to this world's Japanese customs. He didn't know much about Greek traditions, as he wanted to honor their mothers, but couldn't do much except teach them a few things he learned through books. He also couldn't teach them to pray to their mothers, as he didn't want to catch the Big Three's attention by accident. You'd never know as they were close by the goddesses. It wasn't that he was scared of facing them. He knew that compared to his power, the GG were weak, having never faced anyone like him. Thing was that he was patient. Like the clever and fierce fox he was, Naruto liked to play with his food. He allowed the three idiots to enjoy their time because once they met him, Chronos would seem like a puppy compared to Naruto. Smiling at them, he gestured for to go brush their teeth. Once they did, everyone finally sat on the table. Clapping their hands in a prayer, they muttered Itadakimasu, I humbly receive, and dug in. As they ate, Naruto took a look at his third and last daughter. Like the other two, she was the splitting image of her mother, with some of him in there. Like his other demigod daughters, she had long flowing black hair that reached her mid-back, with a blue crab-shaped hairpin on her left side bangs, just like her grandmother, not that she knew it. Her eyes were like his, a mesmerizing ocean blue, being nice and gentle when happy, but a fierce storm when angered. Like her mother. Her skin was a beautiful pearl white, which is why he named her that Pearl. Well that, and because of who her mother was. She can be a bit shy at times, but is able to bring out her inner Yuzumaki when needed. She's also very polite, following his words when he tells her to do something and always cleaning after herself. She even asked if she could learn how to do the laundry at age 6. She was like Hinata. Strangely enough, unlike her two sisters, she had 3, very faint whisker-like line on her cheeks, just like her father and secret older half-siblings. She was actually the youngest of the 3 sisters, being born 3 days after the first 2, so Naruto at times dotes over her, not too much to seem she was his favorite as he would never pick a favorite of his children. They, with Himawari and Moroku being the primary, were his little princess, with Boruto, Momoshi, and Nagato being his little Gakkus. He loved all his children, no matter what choice of life they picked. They could be evil, crazy, boring, average, and he would still love and support them. Pearl's mother, like his previous 2 lovers, was a very important figure. For she was the most important female in the sea. Amphitrite, the queen of the sea. Goddess of fish and seal, and queen of the legendary city of Atlantis. He was really cursing his luck at meeting and fucking with 3 powerful goddesses. He met the sea goddess, shockingly enough, at a nightclub. Naruto was there, watching with amusement at the people mad fools of themselves and get lost in their lust. It was then that he sensed a now familiar energy source. Ancient, godly energy. He looked around and spotted a woman sitting at the corner of the room, getting as drunk as she could. She had a mist of illusion surrounding her. He had nothing better to do and was interested and approached her. At first, she was shocked at seeing her approach her as her mist was up and tried to politely get him to go away, but he was able to calm her down. Telling her that he just wanted to talk as he sensed that she was slightly scared at being approached. He used a bit of genjutsu on her weakened mind, so she didn't question how he passed through the mist. He questioned on what she was doing alone and at that place. Saying she didn't look the type for that sort of thing. She responded with trying to forget. Seeing her in the state that she was, all hollow and broken, reminded him of Tsunade when he first met her and after Jiraiya's death and wanted to help her. "You look like someone who could use an ear to talk to," he had told her, catching her by surprise as she blinked at him. "You want to get out of here?" Though reluctant, she agreed, her mind too hazy to be cautious. All she wanted to get away from the loud music and she didn't know why, but there was something about the blonde that calmed her nerves. So, they left the club, walking through the silent streets and into the nearby park. It took a few minutes, but soon she began to open up. Turned out that her husband tended to ignore her. However, that wasn't a problem to her, as her marriage, as she told him, was arranged. Unlike with Hera and Persephone, Amphitrite didn't actually care too much if her husband, Poseidon, cheated on her. For the simple fact that she didn't actually love him. What did get her was that she was mostly ignored by her family because she wasn't of a high status. She even cried about her husband having sex with other women before fucking her and feared that she was nothing but a tool to use. Naruto comforted her, whispering gently to her that she was not a tool, but a beautiful kind woman. He spent the night trying to make her feel better, taking her to quiet and relaxing places, even the carnival that was in town. It worked as she soon began to laugh and have fun. Soon, the two began dating, though they had to avoid going to the beach, lakes, or touching any bodies of water. Surprisingly, Amphitrite was the first goddess he dated that revealed herself to him. He thought about revealing himself as well, but decided to wait to see what would happen. Unfortunately, she was then called back to her home for something and had to leave. But not before rocking his world, as Jiraiya putted it. 6 months later, he had a nice surprise at his door when he saw 3 pissed-off goddesses standing before him. Each holding a bundle in their arm, glaring at him. It was not a good morning for him. It took everything his weakened body and brain had to get them to calm down and not kill him to explain, as they accused him of being like their husbands. Offensive. At least he cared about his lovers. And so, he told them everything. How he was from another world. How he was once human before becoming a god and how he met the 3 at different times. He told them how he had a few wives previously, as well as children, all currently safe in Tengoku. And how he had his powers sealed to avoid genocide. The shock of hearing what he was calmed down their anger and betrayal. Though they fidgeted at hearing he was a Shinto god, given the tense air between the Shinto gods and Greek gods. They also were mad that he never told them before, but was countered by him saying that they never revealed who they were as well, making them flinch. Deciding to change the topic, he asked to see his daughters. He knew they were female and his by their scent and fragmented signatures of chakra in them. Holding them in his arms brought nostalgic feelings he had when he first held his previous children. He could be thousands of centuries old and the feeling would never be gone nor forgotten. When he asked what would happen next, he was told how their husbands, the big 3 Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, were extremely protective over their wives and would destroy anyone who dared touch them. And if his identity was discovered, along with their daughters, the world would practically shatter in their rage. They explained that with them being pregnant the last few months, they had to be careful, as now their husbands had nothing to distract them, having recently events make the gods sworn to never have demigod children again, and was a matter of time until they'd be found out. And so, after quick births, they sought Naruto to raise their mine, they thought simultaneously daughters, as they feared what would happen as their secrets were found out. Not to mention that it was recently discovered that Zeus yet again had a demigod daughter, much to Hera's frustration. And so the gods had vowed to never have demigod children again, they had no choice but to hand their daughters to Naruto to raise and to keep them a secret from the other gods. Naruto agreed. I have nothing better to do, anyway. He thought. And so, for 8 years, he raised his demigod daughters, while also making sure to keep them hidden from the gods and killing any monsters who discovered them. Oh yeah, apparently, monsters in this world had a thing for attacking demigod children out of fear and instinct. My daughters have Greek godmothers and I'm a Shinto god, so doesn't that make them goddess too? Well, he did seal their god blood and developing chakra to avoid being targets to monsters, so they were currently demigods to an extent until he unsealed it. Still, as he ate his breakfast, he glanced up at his daughters as they ate and talked amongst themselves, making his smile. They were each so different yet very similar to one another. Wind, water, and fire. Those were Sarah's, Pearl's, and Chloe's respective elemental affinities last time he checked. Funny, being that their mothers' husbands command over those respective regions. Wind is weak against fire, water is strong against fire, and fire is strong against wind, but weak against water. So, the girls had strong and weak parts to their sisters. A triangular cycle of power. They each kept the other in line with their elemental personalities. Chloe was an uncontrollable flame when exited, unable to keep herself from moving. She is usually calmed down by Pearl's gentle nature. Pearl is calm like the ocean, but could become lazy like a Nara. Sarah tends to keep her busy so she doesn't fall asleep. Sarah is fierce like the wind, blowing over anything and everything like a hurricane, but is simmered down by stronger flames. Chloe's constant craziness tires her out. It was strange, he expected Chloe to have earth, or even wood, Mokutan. But theorized that since Persephone was tricked into being stuck in the underworld, the elemental affinity there must have affected her, passing the element to her daughter. Though, he and the Biju think that the older the girls get, the better chances of them growing stronger and even gaining more elements. He smiled fondly as he looked at them, as they talked amongst themselves. Truly, the title of father was the greatest thing to ever happen to him. As they were eating, he saw something moving toward them out of the corner of his eyes. Turning his head, he smiled when he saw the family pet hop up on the edge of table. It was a fox. A red fox. Smiling, he rubbed the top of the creature's head gently as the girls saw their pet and smiled, Chloe offering a piece of her pancake. Soon breakfast was done and the girls got ready for school. As his daughters left to grab their clothes and race to the bathroom, Naruto waited until they were completely gone. Once they were, with a wave of his hand, a clone appeared next to him and began clean the table and wash the dishes as he went to get dressed. When he got dressed in a black casual dress shirt that was left opened, a dark orange undershirt, and black jeans with black shoes, he sat on the living room couch with Chloe watching cartoons from the large flat screen as Sarah and Pearl were using the two bathrooms on the house, the one in his room and the hallway one. As Chloe was giggling at the comedy entertainment, making Naruto smile, he thought on some things. Well, he did say he is here to sightsee, he was actually here on a mission. One given to him by some surprising people. Not only were some big stuff going to happen soon, but the Greek gods themselves have grown very arrogant and abusive of their power. Messing with the ways of mortals and messing with balance by giving birth to demigods like rabbits on heat. He was here to set them straight by kicking their asses. All gods had a limit to their free reign, and the Greeks have passed it centuries ago when they began using their demigod children to do their dirty work for them and power instead of love. And from what he had learned and experienced since being given demigod daughters, the gods rarely, if ever, claim their children from what Hera told him. And even worse, the parents that actually loved their demigod children, the few there are, had to send their children to some camp where they are trained to be heroes. It all made him sick. Even the Roman counterparts of the Greek gods were tolerable, if a bit too military-styled. The Shinto gods actually cared about any demigod children they birthed and protected them if needed. He will need a plan and course of action. I think the first plan of action is to locate any demigod not yet discovered and guard them against monster. I'll also need to check out this camp Half-Blood and see if they are trustworthy. I'll have Zetsu see if he can find it or at least a general location it's in. Second, the Greek god's base. I know it's somewhere in New York. So I'll send a couple of clones to find it and see if they could sneak in. Third, send clones to Greece to dig up any info on the gods and history that I missed. And all of this while keeping my Shinto identity secret. Kami knows what could and would happen if the Greeks discover a Shinto in their territory. Maybe it's time I checked in some favors. He thought before nodding at the first phase of the plan. He needed to treat this like a shinobi mission. One wrong move could ruin everything. Also he thought as he glanced at the laughing Chloe who was watching Looney Tunes, smiling as he ruffled her hair, making her smile happily at him. I need to keep my daughters safe, no matter what. Soon, Pearl was finished getting ready and joined them on the couch as Chloe went to take her turn. Soon the girls were showered, dressed, and packed with their backpacks on their backs. Smiling at them, Naruto grabbed his car keys and led them to the garage. Naruto hated driving. The sound of the engine hurt his ears, the gasoline made him nauseous, and the road was filled with assholes who were too impatient. Learning how to drive was the hardest thing he had to do. Much less wait to get a stupid license. He'd preferred teleporting to where he wanted, or better yet, fly there. But he was being incognito Kami, he was beginning to hate that. And need to be normal. Damn it all. Still, just because he was forced to drive didn't mean he was going to get a stupid van because he had kid. He was Naruto fucking Yuzumaki. He lived for excitement. Besides, his eyes and instincts helped warn him of any incoming trouble seconds before they could happen. And so, entering the garage, he turned on the lights to see his orange and black Mustang convertible. He was a cool dad, not some safety wimp. His parenting was one where he would let his children play with fire and get burned before scolding them. While he loved his daughters very dearly, he wouldn't hold their hands forever. He would teach them to protect themselves against the world and support any decision they had except boys. He put his foot down with boys. As the family got in the car, Sarah taking the passenger seat, Naruto snapped his fingers, sending out a small pulse of chakra to activate seal-encoded garage door. He had placed security seals all over the house to protect it against any intruders, both human, god, and monster. Only those who had their signature marked into the master seal were allowed free entry, anyone else who tried to force their way in would get a nasty surprise by a 1000-volt electric current. Everyone buckled and comfy, the Yuzumaki family left the house and off for school. End of prologue. Chapter 2. Yearning Hearts, the game begin. In his long, godly new life, many things had changed about Naruto Uzumaki. He has grown somewhat lazy, having seen many things, more than many could say they could possibly imagine. He had done things, some which would stain his hands till the end of his existence. Some which would haunt his dreams for many nights. He had become somewhat reckless, more than he used to be as a human. He had even grown in intelligence, outranking even Shikamaru and Albert Einstein, something that shocked every one of his friends. Assholes, he could be smart if he wanted to. He was just more of a fighter than a thinker. But one thing that would never change about him was his protectiveness for the things he sees as precious to him. He would watch cities burn and fall, skies bleed red in fire, meteors falling from the sky as the earth below him quake and shatter, all done by his own hand if it meant keeping his family safe. Old powerful men and women hold scars, both mental and physical. For an orphan, the life of a shinobi, added with the Fourth Great Shinobi War and his many centuries of existence, had made him fiercely protective of his family. With an impassive look, Naruto looked down from the roof of the school building, watching as his clone dropped his daughters off before taking the car back to the house. Nodding in satisfaction, his now crimson red, ripple eye rolled around, his three-road tomo spinning around in a slow, hypnotic pace. Turning his head left and right, he nodded again and turned his eyes off. He was sitting with his legs crossed, near the edge, with a leg dangling over. Leaning against his chest and resting on his shoulder was a large needle with a long length of thin wire mirroring thread tied through the eye located at the end. Raising his hand, he twitched his fingers. As the sun shined down on his, if one looked closely enough, they would see the light reflecting off near invisible wire threads tied around his fingers with wires lining outward, seemingly vanishing off a few inches. This game is Bekamingdal. I need stronger players. He muttered. Behind him, the floor painted a golden spray, were bodies of monstrous features, chopped to bits. They looked like giant humanoid bats, that being as much as one could identify, as their bodies and limbs were chopped and sliced to small pieces. In the air and ground, reflective displays of wires could be spotted. Thus is the fearsome power of the Nabari, the sewing needle sword. Taking but a single glance behind him, he saw the flesh pieces begin to disintegrate into golden dust. Holding a hand up, he activated his Gakkuden, pre-top path, and absorbed the dust. Thus, preventing their rebirth. Furries, monsters of vengeance, who had taken the appearance of school teachers, out on the lookout for demigod children to kill. Meaning his daughters. That was the worst and last mistake they would ever do. Standing up, he sealed Nabari back into his pocket dimension as he dusted his pants off. Raising his right hand, the appendage became encased in light blue energy flame. Slamming his hand down on the ground, a sealing ray appeared before in a puff of smoke, a small dark green furred fox, the size of a small kitten appeared. Shaking her fur, the kid-sized fox looked up at him and bowed. Naruto-sama. How may I be of service? She asked in respect. Looking down at the small vixen, Naruto smiled softly. Mimi-chan. I need you to watch over my daughters. Use your ability to split and watch them from the shadows until I pick them up later in the day. If anyone suspicious approaches them, discreetly knock them out and lock them somewhere for me to get later. If you smell any monsters, destroy them. He ordered, his voice icy at the last part. Mimi nodded in understanding. It shall be done, Lord Naruto. With a final bow, she vanished, showing her incredible speed as being a recon spy class kitsune. Watching her off, Naruto turned forward and looked out at the city. He looked down at all the human, ignorant of the three actions happening around them. Fearful of the unknown and weak, relying merely on technology and weapons. A far contrast to the proud warriors of men and women I had once fought alongside centuries ago. Ugh. I'm getting all nostalgic again. I need to experience battle again. Wonder if Sasuke's up to anything. In a flash, the blonde god vanished, leaving nothing behind. No gold dust, no wire, no chopped monsters. It was as if he wasn't even there to begin with. Since his daughters had school from 8 to 2, using my old elementary school time frame, Naruto had much time on his hands. And so, he had plenty of time to do whatever he wanted. He didn't need to worry about a job, as he could create money out of nothing. All power in the house was fueled by seals. He had clones building up and managing his spy network. His house was always 100% clean, thanks to his Naruto maids, and had his clones and summons either watch over his girls or looking round for any nearby demigods. And so, with so much free time on his hands, Naruto had to figure out ways to spend his time. He would either do some small training, have spars with clones, as Sakura had forcefully banned him and Sasuke from fighting after they blew up that moon and planeton system. In a conscious mind, many it wasn't such a good idea to have an all-out battle. Oops. Anyway, with time being irrelevant to a god kami, he would leave a clone at home as he traveled fly around the world. He would hit Vegas' beautiful place, if a bit too bright with the lights and completely bankrupt casinos, with his godly even by God's standards good luck. He would travel to Hollywood and spend some quality time with famous actresses, Namika's charm for the win. At most, he would head to Tengoku and catch up with his friends and family, especially his wives. Strange, his libido has been pretty high as of recent. Or even hang out with a few gods that knew of his existence on the planet. Naruto was a fox. He was the very definition of a fox. He was mischievous. He liked to prank, even at his age the king of pranks shall never die. He proudly shouted out. His pranks would involve creative decorations of historical monuments, either taking the form or mind controlling the actions of known people and having them do embarrassing things in public or even corrupting the minds of the young into continuing his pranking legacy. Oh, how he remembered when his children would do their first pranks. Especially little Himawari-chan. Tears of joy. With his pranking actions, he was bound to make a mistake sooner or later and reveal his existence, ever of just a second. Luckily for him, the one who found his first was his self-proclaimed bro, Apollo, the Greek god of the sun, light, and music. It only took 2 minutes of the two starring at each author before they became best friend. Do not judge the bond of pranksters and partigors and fellow blondes. It wasn't long after that Hermes, the messenger of the gods and Greek god of commerce, thieves, travel, and speed, joined the little group at Apollo's push. He liked the two male Olympians. Apollo was loud and obnoxious, reminding him of himself when he was a kid, and Hermes was a fellow thief to his former occupation as a shinobi. He also liked the two because they weren't arrogant like their father, Zeus. Being able to trust them, he even revealed his existence as a Shinto god and his mission to the two. They were shocked, yes, but mostly about the former than the latter. Sure, the mission put them on edge a bit, but giving them the reason, they had to reluctantly agree and accept. But knowing that Naruto was a Shinto god made them uncomfortable. They knew all about the feud between their two religious courts, and while they didn't cared very much about it, they knew that if their father found out. Best not to think about it. Though Apollo asked Naruto if the Shinto goddess of the sun, Amaterasu, was there as well. His voice barely hiding the levels of fear he held at the thought of that woman being there. Naruto chuckled at that. He knew why Apollo was so scared of the fourth high kami being told from the woman herself and the other kamis. Apparently, Apollo had once tried to flirt with the Shinto goddess many eons ago. The results were not pretty. Even with high-speed healing, it took Apollo months to heal from the 4th degree full body burns. He would forever regret his actions. Even Artemis felt sorry for her brother. And on that day, all the Olympians felt a shiver of dread go down their backs, feeling a sense of dread and misfortune in their future. A shiver which spread all over the universe when Naruto's other bro joined in. Loki, Norse god of trickery and mischief. All shall come to fear the power of the prank squad. The name was a work in progress. Unfortunately, he couldn't spread mayhem around the world as Hermes and Apollo were stuck in a meeting of the gods and Loki was being yelled at by his father Odin, Norse All-Father, god of war and king of the Norse deities. Naruto hated him. He was an arrogant old man who always wanted things to go his way. There was also the fact that he believed himself to be better than his Hikari-chan. Bastard needed a 1000 years of pain Rasengan version to the ass. Seriously, what was it with old god rulers being so arrogant? He was lucky Izanagi Jiji wasn't arrogant thanks to the kind but surprisingly dominant Izanami Baki means Izamani Kachin. Never know when she's listening. So, with nothing much to do and deciding to take a lazy day, one of his many days to come, Naruto sat calmly under a large tree within the middle of the Amazon rainforest. It was a nice place, plenty of rain and natural presence. Sitting in a meditation stance, legs crossed, Naruto closed his eyes, taking a deep steady breath before letting go. He slowly let out his chakra, letting it sink into the ground and trees, establishing a connection with nature. His godly presence, while still hidden from Olympian eye, slowly began to fade into non-existence. His breathing slowly until it was barely above alive. If anyone was to see him, they would believe he was nothing more than a statue. His breathing was barely non-existent, not a single twitch or flinch. Naruto had achieved perfect meditation, something not ever modern-day sages or monks could accomplish. His mind completely blank as he submerged his essence with nature. His connection with nature strengthening to new levels. He could feel it all. The shifting winds. The soft pulses of the earth. The ants and insects digging through the soil. The soft breathing and heartbeats of nearby animals watching him in curiosity from a distance, the birds which fly down and rest on his shoulders. The same creatures who come to rest on his lap, basking in his calm presence. He could feel and track every branch and root of the forest. He could see the energy flowing through the trees, through the roots and all over the soil of the earth. Connecting his senses with the roots, he could see very far. Miles and miles, a seemingly endless channel of paths and connections. He could feel everything. Men, women, child, animals, even monsters. Anything that lived, that breathed, all connected primarily to nature. Anything and everything that nature saw, so did he. He and nature were ensynced. Every beat of his heart, the earth echoed. Every pulse moved in synch. When he used Senjutsu, he wasn't a god, nor a man. He was one being with nature itself. He felt free, unrestrained by life. He felt so big, everything seemed so small. He felt pain. His body hurt. He gritted his teeth, his muscles twitching. The animals around him mirroring his emotions as they began to growl or cry. He felt corruption. Greed. Painful pulses rippling all around him. He saw machines digging into his body. He saw fire spreading, hurting him. Burning him. He saw people spilling their trash all over him. Trees being cut down. Heavy objects weighting him down. Holes being dug deep into his body. Why? Why was this happening? Sweat began to swarm his forehead. The earth, Mother Nature. It was in pain. Her cries echoing in his head. How long had she been crying? Why hadn't the Olympians helped her? Couldn't they feel her pain? She needed help. She was hurt, angry, sad, betrayed. So many emotions. So much pain. So much anger. Make it stop. His eyes burst open. The familiar Sharingan blazing to life. However, where it was once a beautiful crimson ruby, was now soft yet hard-burning yellow. His tomos spans in rapid speed around his pupil. Clockwise and counterclockwise. Spinning like a swirl. Like a maelstrom. Gaia, also known as Mother Earth or Mother Nature, the primordial Greek goddess of the earth, was a vengeful woman. In her endless existence, she had been betrayed so many times. First by her husband, Uranos, the protogenos personification of the sky and this side of the universe. She had never felt such anger when her beloved husband imprisoned her precious children deep within the bowels of Tartarus. The bastard's death brought a sickening sense of pleasure within her. That would teach him to mess with her. She had believed that now she and her children would be able to live peacefully. She was wrong. When he had named her youngest son, Kronos, the Lord of the Universe, a sense of dread filled her. She had foolishly ignored it. She had been an idiot and entrusted the watch of all life to her children as she went into a deep slumber, peacefully sleeping as her children roam her physical body soon called Earth. Next time she awoke, she expected her children going on happily with their lives. Only to her horror, to discover a similar cycle of events. Her son Kronos, having married his sister Rhea, the queen of the Titans and Titaness of Motherhood. They had 5 children, whose forms differ from other Titans, being smaller in size, but holding immense power within them. They had become known as gods. Gaia had believed her youngest would prove to be a better father than Uranos. She was a fool. It had later been discovered that Kronos had kept a secret from everyone for centuries. It had seemed that Uranos had one last trick up his sleeve before his death. As Kronos had been about to deal the final blow, the sky being spoke to him. He had prophesied that one day, Nono shall too be betrayed and meet his end at the hand of his children. The words had echoed through the young Titan's hand constantly, eventually driving him mad. The birth of his children was all it took to make him snap. Becoming corrupted with his power and going obsessed with keeping hold of his throne, Kronos had done something not even Uranos would have done. He ate his children. No chewing, simply swallowing them whole and keeping them trapped within his stomach. Believing that if he does so, his father's prophecy would never come true. Every time Rhea would give birth, Kronos would swallow them like nothing. It brought great pain to Gaia to see her son following the same path as his father. Having had enough, she planned to put a stop to this. When she discovered that her daughter was pregnant with a 6th child, she contacted her. Advising her daughter to give birth at Crete, giving birth to a son named Zeus, Gaia had her daughter hid the baby and use a disguised stone in his place. The plan had worked well, and Kronos had vomited his trapped children. She had not known what had happened after that, as she had grown tired from using her low energy to contact her daughter. The chaos brought on her physical shell had weakened her, forcing her into another slumber. The 3rd time she awake, and once again, it was to betrayal. Her grandchildren, the Olympians as they called themselves, the ones she had helped free from their father's body prison. They had banished and trapped her children, the Titans, into the pit, the darkest and deepest realm of darkness within the underworld. Why? Why was her family doing this? Her husband, then her son, and now her grandchildren. Why was there so much fighting? So much killing and hatred? She had never surfaced so much anger within her in her existence, not even to Uranos. Gaia was once a peaceful deity who only wished for happiness and love in her family. Why couldn't she have that? Her father had created her to bring life to the dark universe. But her family, they bring only death. Would they ever stop? Fathers and sons constantly becoming the same as their predecessors. Betraying the other to seek power. An endless cycle of hatred. Why won't they stop? Would they ever stop? Was this to be continue for eternity? Her family. What has happened to them? Her home, Earth, it was being destroyed in their war. Her small children dying in the crossfire. Their screams of death echoing in her mind. So loud. Too many scream. Stop it. Stop. I said stop. If their war wasn't going to end, Tostopia'll make them stop. Her brother, Tartarus, primordial being of darkness. Together, they could stop this pain in her. They could stop the cause. Rise, my children. Rise from the darkness, rise with life, rise in your massive forms. The Olympians, go and kill the Olympians. Go, for your mother. Her children, the last one her weakened power would allow her to form. Stronger than their brothers. Than their god counterparts. Each made to defeat and destroy a specific target. They were more than enough of a match for the Olympians. For as the fates foretold, only by a god and a demigod working together can the Gigantes be defeated. She had believed that her children were going to win, outmatching the gods in power and strength. Her granddaughter Hera captured as bait to lure in Zeus. However, she had not foreseen her grandson working together with his own son, a famed hero known as Hercules, and finally begin to slay the giants down one by one. It angered her. Her children. Cut down like animals. Those damn Olympians. One day, she would take care of them permanently. Defeated, she was forced into a continuous slumber, one which the gods had hoped to be one she would never awaken from. However, unknown to them, Gaia had never went to sleep. She had been awake all this time. Watching, waiting, feeling. She had seen the humans live and grow. She had seen them build, discover, adapt. They lived peacefully. They were happy. Something she had wished for her own family. Those were happy times. Unfortunately, it was not to last. It was torture. For centuries, she had been struck by the blades of war and violence. Her shell cracked and stabbed, stained by crimson blood and filled with corpses. Every blast, every bomb, every drop of blood. Pollution and radiation poisoning her, killing her soul bit by bit. Crime, waste, murder, forests jumped down, mountains blasted away. It hurt her and there seemed to be no end in sight. Please. Stop. It hurts. Someone. Help me. Please stop. She cried out yet no one answered her pleas. She was alone. She was going to die. There was no denying it. These humans, they savored their long lives, only fearing meeting their end by murder or accidents. Never knowing that their seemingly innocent actions would bring their deaths much closer than expected. She gave them a home, and this is how they repay her. Selfish beings. They were not worthy of such kindness. Her body exploding will be the last blow to them from her. Closing her dark green eyes to presumably the last time, she waited for the explosion to come. She waited. And waited. And waited some more. She may be immortal, but she hated waiting for things for too long. It was rude. It was then that she felt a slight disturbance. It felt like a small itch in the back of her neck, even though her spiritual form didn't have one. Concentrating, she discovered that, to her shock, her energy was somehow being sucked out of her. It wasn't much, barely 2% to her infinite reserves, but the action was enough to shock. This had never happened before. No one and nothing had even been able to take her power from her. Seal and bind. Yes, but never taken. What was more, was that whatever was taking her energy wasn't forcing it out of her. In fact, it was as if it was asking it to come to it, and her energy obeyed loyally. Growing cautious, but also curious, Gaia tranced the source of whatever was taking her energy. What she discovered shocked her. It was man. A seemingly normal human man from an outwards appearance. But what shocked her was how her energy absorbed itself into his being, becoming one with him. What trickery was this? How could a human male be able to take, much less call, her endless and primordial energy? Doing so should have killed him. Not even gods were able to absorb her essence without suffering illness, except for those two young goddesses who actually took care of her shell. Hestia and Demeter she believed the young girls were called. There was no way this man was a regular human. Taking a risk, the mother of nature used her unmatched sensory gift to pierce into the man's consciousness, wanting to discover his true identity. If she had a mouth, she would have gasped. This man, his energy, it was so bright. So warm. It was as if she was in the presence of her brother, Helios, titans of the sun. So much warmth. It seemed so endless. The light and warmth from his essence spread all over her form, covering her in protective blanket, one she never wanted to be rid of. Who was this man? For years, she was frozen in a daze. Never moving or thinking. Just watching the mysterious man. She watched him, traveling the world, spreading the knowledge of what could be a religion. He called it Ninshu. A tool and form of gaining peace by shouldering one another of burden and pain, gaining a connection of understanding with what would have been strangers minutes ago. He led his followers through peace, his words and kindness, putting a stop to wars and violence. He made it look so easy. Simply smiling at a person and speaking but a few words and become friends with them in a matter of seconds. How was that possible? Within months, her pain began to leave her, the warmth spreading more all over her. Her past anger and sadness leaving her without her even knowing. Her attention solely on the man who healed her. All her anger, her hatred, all her malicious feelings, the man took them all in his being like a sponge to water. Containing them within him and evaporating them with his bright light. To be able to shoulder and erase so much burden like nothing amazing. She watched silently as he was somehow able to bring life to dead forests simply by placing a hand on the ground. Though she would catch the pulse of a strange but soothing energy from him. Was he a god? But she had never seen him before. In fact, she had never sensed his existence before now. How? She deemed him a threat. She wanted to deem him a threat. A threat to her. For being a mysterious force in her space. But she couldn't. What was it about him that attracted her to him? What wasn't? During nights of the full moon, the light shining down on him, encasing him in eternal beauty, she would watch him side still on the ground. He would meditate for a full length of a month without moving an inch. At times, she would fear he was actually dead, only the presence of his connection to nature washing over her, calming her down. Any time he would connect his energy, his ninshu, with her own, she would gladly allow him. To feel his presence wrap itself over her, imagining him wrapping her soul body in his arms, brought immense happiness and peace to her. Gaia, Titan mother and mother of nature, had fallen happily and utterly for this strange mysterious being who appeared in her darkest hour. Their souls entwined together like a lover's embrace. Their souls mixed in together in a tight hold. She provided with power and balance, not that he would ever need her help, as she had seen, while he granted her peace and clear mind. Connected, they were one being, their minds ensynched. But it was more than that. When they were connected, she could see and feel everything he did, and vice versa. She could feel his thought, what he could be think of. Such was the power of this injutsu, as he called it. Well, not entirely, she could hazily see his memories. The god. Her beloved was a god from the Shinto region. Which could only mean one thing. He was immortal. Her beloved was eternal like her. They could be together forever. Her love for him outmatched that of her previous consorts. It was true love. Growing impatient with not feeling his touch physically, Gaia formed a plan to present herself to him. Gaia had no physical form, at least not a true form. At most, she could create a body of earth and nature. However, she didn't wish to disgust him with her construct appearance. She needed a true physical body of flesh. One with a beauty to entrance her beloved. But the man, oh, how she hoped to learn of his name, healing her shell and consciousness. Her strength had returned to her, putting her back at full strength. She required a body perfect for her meeting with her beloved, one perfect for him. Something like that Olympian Aphrodite, the most beautiful being seen in both Olympian and Titan eyes. She eagerly designed her new body, paying very close attention to any unneeded mistakes and errors. She was a perfectionist when she wanted to be, so for years she created her perfect body, some she believed should be only the best for her beloved. While she couldn't care less about pointless views of beauty and looks, she knew men were attracted by appearance, though a small thought whispered to her that the man wouldn't care. Soon, the body was ready. Ready for her consciousness to take possession and appear to her beloved. All was ready. However, just as she was appear before her love. He vanished. She was too late. On that day, the earth had never shook as hard as it had then and there. Pain. Loneliness. Sadness. Depression. So many emotions he could sense from the earth. Just as he had all those years ago. Didn't anyone know that the balance of the planet was a fragile thing? Taking a deep breath, Naruto placed his hands on the ground. The earth was being poisoned by large amounts of negative spiritual energies, not that mambo jumbo crazy hippie talk, negative spiritual energy, yin chakra. It was hurting her. He could feel it. How long has this been going on? He knew he should have stayed when he first sensed the problem. Even more, he was a fool to leave the safety of the planet to his followers, it was too big for them. Activating his pre-top path, he slowly began to observe the negative energy, while also using Senjutsu to connect with the Earth's consciousness. If all those books were right, the consciousness of the Earth was Gaia. Establishing a connection with her soul, he mentally soothed her mentality, absorbing her negative emotions. Lady Gaia, all shall be calm. By my title as a sage, you shall never feel such pain again. Beloved. Olympus Council Chambers. Hera was a strict woman. As the queen of the gods, she commanded respect, order, and discipline. In every meetings, she would always be the first to speak, being the overspeaker and a sort of judge to the court. She would always lay down the foundations and summary of each meeting. If anyone should speak out of term or show disrespect, they would come faced with Hera's wrath. However, there were times even Hera would grow bored and exhausted of certain meetings. Meetings like the current one. And the topic. Surprise, surprise. Her husband had another child. By the hearth. There were times she wanted to chop off his just so he would learn a lesson. It wasn't the fact that Zeus had broken his promise and oath by the Styx River about never having demigod children again that pissed her off. Sure, the river was a sacred piece to them. But no, it was the fact that Zeus broke his promise to her that angered her. After World War II, Zeus had approached her. Proclaiming his love for her. And promised to never betray her again. She was a fool to believe him. And to think she gave the bastard the best night of his eternity. Hera, how can you call a marriage with a man who constantly cheats on you and doesn't even stop love? I know it hurts you, as marriage is your domain. Her fingers twitched at the sudden memory of him. A frown deepened her lips. She tried to clear her mind, erasing the familiar image of a certain Shinto god. Why won't it go away? She didn't want to think about him. She didn't want to think about that stupid blonde hair. Or those ghastly ocean blue eyes. Or that stupid grin he had whenever she glared at him. Or those cute whisker-marked cheeks. Hera bit her lip. Was he ever going to leave her mind? She didn't want to remember him. Ever again. It was too painful. Hera was the goddess of marriage. She was supposed to be sacred to her marriage with Zeus, and yet she could only think of herself as a hypocrite. She was angry at Zeus for constantly cheating on her and let her guard down. It was supposed to be a simple getaway vacation to the mortal realm. A small time to calm herself down and then go back to her husband with a smile on her face, pretending everything was alright. And of course the plan was ruined thanks to one Naruto Yuzumaki. Gah. She could never forget how he just laughed when she said that to him, just saying you wouldn't be the first to say that to me, Dadabeo. Stupid idiot. As much as she wished to deny all evidence, hinging out with Naruto was fun. Sure, he constantly annoyed her to Tartarus and back, constantly getting them into trouble, always messing with her schedule, giving her a headache with his antics. Ramen is not something to constantly be eating. It is bad for you. Kiss my ass, boss lady. However, even under the oath of the River of Styx, she wouldn't be able to lie that the time she had spent with him, no matter how small, were quite enjoyable. Naruto, he reminded her of how Zeus was eons ago, before their marriage, and he became what he was today. No, Naruto was better. Even at their younger times, Zeus was egotistic, always thinking himself better than others. Naruto was an idiot. Anything and everything he did would either be the opposite of what most would expect normal and rational people to do or be a walking mess of chaos, especially when he does his pranks. It took her months to wash that pink paint from her clothes. How and where the hell did he even get paint that was resistant to magic? Naruto Uzumaki was unorthodox. He thrived with giving people headaches and laughing it off. How she even survived her time with him was something she kept questioning herself. He was also a bit perverted, many times suggesting doing a bit of role play with her though attitude. There was no way she was going to have teacher-student sex. Such ghastly things were for Aphrodite, not her. It angered her immensely how the blonde somehow had an easy time making her flush with his perverted joke. The man had balls of iron to ask a final request of a foursome between him and the three divas. Hey, die a happy man, right? Naruto asked sheepishly as he was surrounded in a corner, the three top goddesses glaring fiercely at him, though their cheeks burned red at the suggestion, images of their own special times with the blonde. Her lips twitching in a faint smile at a memory of a sheepishly laughing Naruto as a wet hair glared at him. Idiot. Shaking her head, she focused back on the meeting. It's been 8 years since the Olympians discovered that Zeus had a daughter. It brought an uproar to the council. Oh, everyone knew that the oath of no more demigod children would be broken sooner or later. It was just a race to see who would be caught with their pants down first. Oh. And to add gas to the fire, Zeus's Roman counterpart Jupiter had a son with the same woman 2 years after the first. Hera had never been so angry at her husband before that day. Another set of her husband's worthless offspring. She had a mind to send an army of kindly ones after them. You should never place the fault of the parents on the children. They had no say in their parents' actions. Do you blame a child because their father didn't pay the taxes? Do you scold a boy because their mother missed an appointment? There is a saying. It is easy to blame and hate, but it is harder to forgive and love. You are trapped within the dreaded cycle of hatred, Hera. You hate your husband for cheating on you, but why target the innocent? Will you let yourself be consumed by anger for all eternity, Hera-chan? Or do you want to make peace with your emotion? She cursed her lover, consort's wisdom. He was younger than her by God's standards, yet he scolded her like a child. She's never been so embarrassed. Still, she had to admit that Naruto had changed her. Whereas before, she would have sent monsters after the children to kill them, she now knew doing so would only bring trouble. She flinched as the memories of what she had done to Heracles Hercules, such as having him kill his wife and children. Naruto's words had caused her to second-think her actions and knew that truly Zeus's children were innocent to their father's crimes. It was all Zeus's fault. Maybe meeting Naruto wasn't all bad. While still a young and inexperienced god, he was quite wise for his age, not to mention powerful. That was one of the reasons she entrusted her daughter's safety with him. Sarah, she thought fondly, remembering her first ever daughter born from someone besides Zeus. She had several daughters before. But Sarah had been the only one of her daughters that was special to her, holding her own place in her heart. Sarah was her joy but also her curse. After all, she was the offspring of her and another man that wasn't Zeus. Not only that, but Sarah held two types of god blood in her. She was the first ever Shinto Greek goddess, as well as her sisters. In the rare cases of offspring of two pantheon, a parent couldn't claim their child to their side of religion. It was entirely the child's choice. Hera didn't care which religion Sarah chose, only that she stayed safe. Though, she would admit that a small part of her hoped the little one picked hers. Though, she secretly feared Sarah hating her once she discovered her demigod heritage, as most demigod children tended to do when they learned the truth. As much as it embarrassed her to admit it, during the time she had spent with the whisker-cheeked knucklehead, Hera had grown an attraction to the idiot. Why else would she allow him to impregnate her? And what a great idea that was. We surely won't ever forget that night, that's for sure. Just thinking about it makes my legs tingle. A familiar voice echoing from the back of her mind sounded out, making Hera's eye twitch, trying in vain to prevent heat from going to her cheeks. Ever since that night, Naruto had corrupted her. Or more to say, he corrupted her Roman counterpart, Juno. Since meeting Naruto, Hera had gained a strange ability. Well, more like an effect. Greek gods held a separate living consciousness, a counterpart, the Roman gods, created from Roman culture. The Roman gods were different from the Greek versions. Being more military-like and having little to no demigod children. Some versions were complete opposites from one another, while others were mostly or exactly the same. Since leaving Naruto, Hera had discovered that her connection with her other self had strengthened to where she could now hear Juno's voice in her mind and vice versa when they switched control of their body. She was still questioned on where this was a good thing or not, given for one simple reason, which can only be put bluntly. Sex with Naruto had turned Juno into a pervert. It was a nightmare to hear her counterpart, who had mostly acted strict and like a commander, like Athena, become so perverted whenever Naruto is mentioned. Hearing her perverted giggles echo through her head was disturbing beyond reason. She hated Naruto so much for this. Now she could barely think without Juno sending her images and fantasy scenes of her and Naruto doing things. Speaking of doing things. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Hera shouted at her sister, as Naruto called them. Sure, they were the same person to an extent, but Hera wouldn't go so far as to say they were sisters. Ah. Why not? I kinda like it. Finally, someone I can be truly close to. Stop reading my thoughts. Even worse, Juno's new personality was similar to that blasted blonde. I'm in your head. How am I supposed to stop? Arg. They even had the same sarcastic wit. Damn you, Naruto. Zeus. How dare you break your oath? You, me, and Hades swore on the sticks. The shout from Poseidon interrupted her thought. Oh, that's right. The meeting. Joy. Zeus narrowed his eyes at his brother. Watch your tune, brother. My actions are my own to be concerned about. He replied, his voice firm and hard. Poseidon glared at his brother and king. We made that pact for a reason. Our demigod children are too powerful. It would only call for trouble in mortal lands. Zeus glared at Poseidon, the sky roaring in thunder. I know very well of the consequences, brother. I also know for a fact that you yourself had a son. He hissed. The other gods looked at one another while Poseidon looked uneasy. Hera rolled her eyes with a sigh. After all their centuries of having meetings about her husband's affairs, she no longer cared. Naruto was right. As a goddess of marriage, how can she hope for the happiness of others if her own was false? When they had first married, Hera had made Zeus swear he would remain loyal to her, that being the only condition that they would be together. Obviously Zeus didn't keep his promise. So why, in the noble Re's name, did she stay with someone who was unfaithful? Answer. Zeus was the only one of the gods that had grabbed her attention and interested her. No other man at the time could make her look at them, so Zeus was the only logical choice. That is, until we met Naruto. She heard Juno mutter, making Hera nod her head slightly in agreement. Meeting Naruto had changed her life, for better or worse, she still did not know. She had even stopped being at Zeus's side 24/7, always leaving after the meeting. She even moved out of the temple she lived in with Zeus, taking residence in her sister Demeter's place for the time being. Even more, she had stopped her annual celebration of their marriage, much to the utter shock and devastation of Zeus. Bastard doesn't even appreciate what she does. Her sacred bath was done not for the pleasure, but to show her husband that he didn't need mortal woman when he had her. But if he's just going to go fuck a woman after he was done with her, then why try? Hera groaned. Why was she constantly thinking about the whiskered blonde? Was it because he was the first person she had ever cheated on her husband with? She needed someone to talk to about this with before it drove her insane. Maybe Persephone and Amphitrite. They were in the same situation as her. What a shocker that was. Discovering that the wives of the big three all had an affair with the same man. Was all life turning upside down? Maybe she should see her mother. She greatly needed advice. Poseidon glared at Zeus, the ground shaking a bit from his rising power, showing proof of his tile as Earthshaker. I will for once admit my faults for disowning my oath. However, the facts reveal true of you, brother. Not only had you, the king of God, fallen back on your promise, on the pack you yourself had created in the first place, but it was your Roman counterpart who had granted the birth of a demigod son. There is a reason why the demigods of Greek and Roman were to be separated from one another. The clashing force of the two top gods caused the room to shake, making the others tense. They felt really uncomfortable being there right now, though Apollo and Hermes were quietly making bets on whether or not a fight was to break out, Ares joining in. Off to the side, Hestia, the eldest child of Re and virgin goddess of the hearth, home, and family, gave a nervous smile as she tried to think of ways to prevent her young brothers from fighting and possible destroying Olympus. Now. Let's just calm down and think reasonably. She spoke, holding her hands up to stop them. Still glaring at one another, the gods of sky and ocean respectively, slowly managed to reel in their power and sit back down on their thrones. Smiling at that actually working, Hestia stepped forth, standing in between the two men to prevent them from flying at the other, should it come to that. Now, while breaking an oath from the sticks is indeed troubling, let us focus back on the topic at hand. What is to become of the children? Athena, goddess of wisdom, warfare, strategy and the arts, asked, looking at her father. Taking a deep breath, Zeus gathered his thought. I know for a fact that Hades had been sneaking off to the human realm, no doubt also having an affair. Meaning that all three god brothers had broken their promise and are about to have demigod children. The reason we made the promise in the first place was to prevent war. Having a new generation of children, the strongest of the demigods, could only lead to another Olympian war. Poseidon glared at Zeus, his green eyes gaining a glow from his anger and suspicion. What are you saying? Zeus sighed, feeling a sense of doom in his future for what he was about to do. To leave the existence of the children of three alone will only bring war. As such, the children are to be never told of their heritage, and on the name of the sticks, no god is allowed to make contact with their demigods again, in the promise of instant death by chaos and order. He declared, the sky thundering as the decree was made. Hera's eyes widened as a gasp threatened to escape her lips, while the parent gods stood up, their shouts echoing the chamber. Her mind froze as she rewound the words she heard. That means she could never see Sarah again. Her daughter. It took a while for Zeus to quiet everyone down, send a pulse of his mighty power to silence them. Enough. My word is law. This is final. This meeting is over. Some glaring at him, the gods reluctantly stood from their thrones and left the chambers to their temples, either by teleportation or simply walking. Zeus let out a groan as he rested his head on his hand. That took a lot out of him. He wondered if he made the right move. His thoughts turned to his children, Thalia and Jason, the latter named after his wife's favorite champion to appease her usual anger, though to his shock, she simply looked away from and replied with a low whatever, husband. Speaking of his wife, he frowned as he looked up. Whereas normally Hera would comfort him after every meeting, nowadays, she always left him alone in the chamber, not even sparing him a glance. This past decade, she had been constantly ignoring him, barely even speaking to him outside of meetings. She stopped kissing him or holding his hand in comfort. She even cancelled their special sacred nights. He wanted to die from that. He knew she was mad at him. Severely. The latest news of his demi-children hitting her hard. But he didn't know it was this bad. Usually she'd throw a tantrum for a few days, target his children with monsters and beasts, and go back to having sex with him. No, didn't know what changed that. It was as if Hera stopped loving him. And he didn't like it. Yuzumaki residence. In a bright flash of light, Naruto hirshined into the living room of his house. With a sigh, he ran a hand through his hair. Still as spiky and untamed as ever. Opening his eyes, he glanced to the right, spotting the familiar form of the certain red fox, lying comfortably on the couch with its head on its paws, green eyes opened and looking at him with mischief. Naruto snorted. Lazy bones. Somehow, the fox grinned at him, even winking. Rolling his eyes, the blonde walked toward the kitchen for some soul-calming ramen. The fox padded after him. taking out a cup of instant ramen while promising to go visit Am-chan and Tuchi-Jiji for the real thing. Naruto had to endure the 3-minute torture as the fox jumped on top of the counter next to him. Once the first was done, he made a second cup and placed it in front of the fox. Snapping his chopsticks apart, Naruto and the fox-eye smiled. Itadakimasu. In a bright blow, the fox shifted form and in place of the animal was a woman who looked to be in her mid-30s. A long curtain of crimson-red hair covering the top of the counter. She wore an expensive-looking and elegant crimson and black kimono, looked to be made of silk of the highest material and meant for royalty. Her skin was a blemish-free light brown tan. Her natural features giving her an incredible beauty with little to no need of makeup, only a soft red lipstick. Behind her, 9 long red fox tails swayed in the air, while on top of her head, 2 fox ears of the same color twitched. Lips pulled back in a wide grin, a glint appearing in her sharp pearl-white teeth, and stretching her own whisker markings on her cheeks, the fox woman grabbed her cup and began eating. Hopping on top of the counter, pushing the fox woman to the side a bit, Naruto began eating his ramen. In content silence, Naruto Yuzumaki, former shinobi and now Shinto god of peace and chaos, and Kurama Yuzumaki, 9-tailed fox beast and wife mate to Naruto. Former Jinchuriki beast duo, enjoyed their ramen, peaceful just being with one another. Sliding over a bit, Kurama smiled as she laid her head on the blonde's shoulder. Glancing at her in amusement, Naruto shifted a bit. Behind him, 10 ink black tails slipped out of his pants silently. The tails wrapped around Kurama's own one by one in a loving embrace, while the 10th tail wrapped itself around the Kyuubi's waist, making her smile widen. After everything that they had been through since Naruto's ascension to godhood, it was nice to have relaxing moments to themselves. While fun, the adventures could be exhausting. Naruto would need to plan picnics for his wives when he brought them from their heaven. Each and every second he spent with the woman he loved dearly brought him peace. Father. Looking over his should, he saw his son White Zetsu phase up from the floor. He had used Kagaya's old idea and created artificial beings to serve as his spies. However, he had modified the old Zetsu designs and components. Zetsus, now known as Biku Zetsu meaning Shadow Tongue, was now able to not only phase through matter, something he replicated from Obito's Kamui, but was made the ultimate spy by being able to shapeshift his form, phase into a person's body without the target knowing, and even merging with their shadows, and travel through them. He could also replicate any voice he hears, making it easy to record conversations. Not to mention, the ability to self-replicate. While Naruto had changed over the centuries, he was and always will be a shinobi, a warrior of war. Being in enemy territory of the Greek gods, you can never be too prepared. Zetsu. Report. Naruto commanded as he and Kurama stood up. He had Zetsu merge itself with Apollo during their last meeting without his friend knowing, so the agent could discover the location of the Greek god's base, Mount Olympus. Mount Olympus is currently residing within a pocket dimension stationed at the 600th floor of the Empire State Building in New York City. The only way for mortals to get to Olympus is through an elevator, guarded by a disguised creature who would only allow authorized personnel. There is another secret entrance at the roof of the tower. A portal hidden at the back of an elevator. Naruto nodded happily. If there ever came a time and would need to pay a visit to the Greeks, he would need to find them easily. A part of him suggesting paying a surprise visit to Hera, but thought against it. Too risky. Good work. Anything else? Zetsu nodded. He told and showed recordings of the meeting and Zeus's new law. Naruto hummed, cupping his chin. So, Mr. Sparky had banned gods from seeing their children. Stupid move, old geezer. Not to mention the news of these children of 3. Kurama looked at her mate. What are you going to do, Naruto-kun? Narrowing his eyes, Naruto walked down the first floor hallway, Kurama after him as Zetsu was dismissed. Stopping in front of a lone door at the end of the hall, a room Naruto banned his girls from ever entering, Naruto bit his thumb and spread blood over the blood security seal on it. The door glowing, it unlocked. Entering, the room showed itself to be much bigger than its entrance suggested. Lining and stacked on the walls were dozens upon dozens of weapons Naruto had collected over the years. Katanas, kunai, shuriken, ninjato, ningata, kusurigama, even the 7 swords of the hidden mist and the sacred tools of the sage of 6 paths. Every weapon from his world and sacred tools too powerful and dangerous to leave in mortal hands. Also located at the back of the large room were several small shrines dedicated to different gods. Naruto used them to quickly communicate with other gods if he needed to. Walking to the center of the room, where there was a small island with a pond around it, there was a table in the middle of the island. Sitting down on the chair, Naruto looked at the shogi and chess sets on the table. Thinking on it, Naruto decided to use the chess set. Both sides held full pieces. The whites were his, while the blacks were the opposing force, which in this case, were the Greek gods. Taking a black pawn, Naruto moved it forward a space. The Greeks had made the first move. He looked at his pieces. He couldn't go into battle by himself, not could he. Looks like it was time to call in some friends. Taking his pawn, he moved it forward, a grin stretching his face as his eyes began to glow a malicious crimson red. Let the games begin. End of chapter 2. With his new immortal life and the soon erased existence of the Age of Blood as it is now called, Naruto Yuzumaki, the Ashirado no Kami, needed something to take his boredom. Unlike his fellow Shinto gods, Naruto had stayed in the lands of mortal. Traveling, watching, protecting. He had lived a good life. He had lived it with his wives and children. With his grandchildren and even more with his descendants. He lived with them, laughed with them. He taught them, raised them when they had no one. At times, he would build families with them, his human view on morality haven, long since withered away with time and age. What was he to fear about human consequences? Life was about risks, he knew that now. He loved his family, all of them. Sons, daughters, grandchildren, daughters turned wives, and granddaughters turned wives. His legacy, as well as that of his old friends continuing on for many decades. When the time came when the last of his sons passed on, he decided it was time for him to leave the soil his old home once laid. He continued his life as a sage. Traveling the ever-changing lands, seeing new and changed places, and meeting new people. He now understood Gaia. For she was right, the earth was his child. At least, as long as it still held chakra within its soil. He was the last of the elementals, the race of chakra. Chakra wielders have died off, with only 2 users left. Him and the planet. Since the blossom of the Shinju tree, the earth has nurtured from chakra, all life that lived on the soil only lived through chakra. Up until it dried off. Once the last of the planet's chakra was gone, all life would die. At least those that depended on the energy. From the ashes, the next generation would rebuild and repopulate. That was just how humans were. How he used to be. So young, never seeming to grow old. Like a bird of phoenix, they grow, learn, die, and are born again. He meant such beautiful creatures. He was glad to have once been one of them. He never got tired of watching them. Seeing them live their lives with no worry. From the families they make to the land they cater to. Yes, there many times days and nights turned dark when the very earth and nature turned against him, but he kept going. Because it was his duty as the new god of Charka. As well as the last son of Chakra. It was his duty to watch over the planet, to calm its cries and whimpers like a parent and stay with until its end. More than a few times in 300 years, dark beings, both humans and not, had risen up to either take over or destroy the planet. Either from the very rock or guests from the stars above. Around 20 times he had to step out of the shadows to clash with them, and once over, he hid again before he was discovered. His existence as a god had to be kept a secret. The time of which humans of his world believed in gods had long since passed, and it would be best to keep it that way. A few times he was discovered, and he either had to permanently take care of them or give them his full trust that they kept the knowledge a secret. A few times, he would rediscover the feeling of love and have a family once more. Most of those times it hurt to see the life leave his wife's eyes. Each time either his conscience or the deities asked him to come home to Tengoku, and each time he declined. He had to protect the earth. Later on, for a time, he backed off from the threats when he had seen the rise of warriors. While human, they had shown to have the capability to handle such threats. Perhaps it was Lady Fate telling him that his job as protector was finished. She had always been trying to make it up to him after making him the child of prophecy. Maybe this time he should listen. The last drop of the earth's chakra was about finished drying. He was tired and needed a break. He had faced threats of all imagination. Humans, demons, aliens, even those bastard heretic gods. In all his travels, he had taken after his teacher and had written stories. So many books. So many stories to share with his friends and family in Tengoku. Yes, it was about time he rested for a bit. However. There was just one chapter to finish before he left. Sire. Blue eyes rolling up, Naruto blinked at the sight of his general kneeling before him. His head rested on his fist as he sat comfortably in his large pillow that served as his throne. He loved his pillow. It was so big and soft. Made of the finest silk and feathers in the land. Though he didn't care how glamorous it looked, only that it was soft. A rich life never interested him. Though he wouldn't make bad comments on the food in bed. What is it? He asked, his tone bored. He's been sitting on his ass all day, listening to those damn preachers give their boring reports and speeches. No wonder Tsunade Bachan was so cranky. He would need to give her a massage when he saw her. The Bantan army is seen approaching from the east. The scout estimate their numbers to be at 5,000. The general reported to his emperor. Naruto just blinked, not looking the least bit concerned. Closing his eyes, he laid his head back a bit, inhaling through his nose, he held it for a few seconds before releasing. Just a few more pages. He muttered. Sire? The general asked, hearing him say something. Opening his eyes, he looked at the man. Gather 100 of the best men in my elite. Tell them to prepare. At dawn, he move out. Sir. The general bowed and left to do as ordered. Sighing, Naruto rolled his neck, letting out a breath when he heard the pops. Soon final chapter ends. Feeling movement on his right, he looked down at the body of his wife, cuddling on his side. You seem to be enjoying yourself there. He stated, an amused smile tugging on his lips. You're warm, Naruto-kun. Was all she said, making the blonde god roll his eyes. His wife always liked to cuddle against him, like he was her teddy bear. She actually said that multiple times, even when she was a young girl. Yeah, well, as much as I like to see tear being your heater, we should get up. The story is about to end and I wouldn't want to miss my last dance. So please let go, Dota-chan. His wife pouted at him, opening her beautiful emerald eyes. Mimi. She muttered, making him roll his eyes in amusement. He always found it funny how his wife, his strongest general, could be a soulless monster on the battlefield as well as a strict empress but a complete puppy when they were together. He spoiled her too much. Raising a hand, he petted the top of her head, ruffling her long raven black locks like he would do back in her childhood as he trained her. Feeling another movement on his left, he rolled his eyes as he looked at the other person cuddling his side. Long brown hair reached down to the floor, pulled up in a ponytail as cream white skin nuzzled against his arm. A silk pink kimono pooling on top of the pillow side. Arms were wrapped around his arm in a tight hold. The person smiled happily as they nuzzled their face against his arm. That means you too, Haim. He said to the female, getting another pout. MMMMH. But I don't want to, Sama. His daughter moaned, making him sigh. He really needed to stop spoiling his wife and daughter. Well, I need to get up. He said as he tried to get out of the tight grasp of his wife and daughter. His wife pouted, a twinkle in her eye. Only if you give us a kiss, she said, her daughter copying her. Naruto rolled his eyes. By the log, these two. Alright, fine. He relinquished. Turning to his wife, he cupped her chin with released right arm and planted his lips against hers. Dota moaned lowly as she felt his tongue brush against her teeth. Instantly opening her mouth, her moan grew louder as his tongue battled hers. She tried to overpower his, but knew it would be impossible with his experience, and her tongue was conquered easily. Her white cheeks burned red as she felt his tongue explore her mouth. Her breath was feeling like it was being sucked out by a vacuum, and when he separated, she was panting breathlessly. Turning to his daughter, Naruto leaned down and smashed her lips against his, doing the same to her as he did to her mother. He had long ago stopped caring about what mortals defined as right or wrong. So years ago, when his own daughter expressed incestuous feeling for her own father, he merely shrugged and kissed her, followed by claiming her body and lover for his own. He was an immortal and a god, human laws be damned to Jigoku, hell. With his two wives numb, Naruto stood up. Cracking his neck and back, he raised a hand and snapped. With a combination of henge and creation of all things, his clothes, currently a royalty red and black kimono with sakura petals on them, shifted and rippled, stretching and soon changed form completely. He now wore his battle armor, a crimson-plated samurai armor. His arms and legs covered in black light armor and his black pants showing. On his back was his god symbol. A six-pointed sun with a small swirl in the middle. Just then, someone entered the throne room. Father. The person said. Naruto nodded in greeting at his son. To others, his son would look like a stranger in comparison to him, given their vast differences in appearance and ego. Naruto looked like he was in his mid-20s with wild shoulder-length sun-kissed blonde hair, something rarely found in today's lands. His son, on the other hand, was in his mid-30s with dark black hair and a mustache. Only those in his family and closest friends knew their relationship and the truth of his godhood. Hello, Nobu-kun. Are you prepared? Naruto asked as he walked to the side. Placing his hand on the wall, he channeled a bit of his chakra. The family watched as lines of sealing symbols spread throughout the wall, before in a large poof and cloud of smoke, they saw several weapons and scrolls hanging on the wall. Picking up his weapons, he sealed them on his body, as well as a few of the scrolls, before placing the last weapon, a massive butcher knife on his back. The Kubikurumchim decapitating carving knife. Once wielded by a man he honored. Once finished, he grabbed the three of the scrolls left and moved to his wife and children, placing them in their hands. Nobu frowned as he looked at the scroll in his hand. He knew what this was. It held the final will of his father, as well as secrets only to be revealed to him, just as his mother and sister's scrolls also held their own secret. The last wisdom and knowledge passed down from Naruto Oda, the emperor of the western lands and clan head and secret founder of the Oda clan. Frowning, Nobu looked up at his father, his eyes barely hiding sadness. His father was leaving, and there was nothing he could do to change his mind. What will you do now, father? He asked. Naruto smiled softly at his son before he walked toward his sad wife and daughter, their eyes barely holding in their tears. He smiled at them as he cupped their cheeks. Smiling, he turned his head to the door. "Come in, Gakus. No use hiding from me." The door opened and Naruto's other children entered the throne room. He had had many beautiful and strong children with Dota and even a few with his youngest daughter, Oichi. He smiled at them while they held frowns. The day was the day. "Listen well, my children." He spoke, getting their attention as they looked at him. "I have lived in this land for much of my existence, both during its prime and current times. I have seen its birth and its destruction. I have protected it like a parent, nurturing it in its time of need. I have stayed by its side continuously and have learned its infinite secret. The fossils it buried and children at birth. And most of all, I have raised a family for many eons. However, today, as the moon shines bright, its light bleeding crimson, my story in this world has reached its ending. At dawn, my existence in this land and future shall leaving its future and fate in the hands of the next generation. In the hands of you. But no, it does not matter to me if you choose to be its protector or its conqueror. For the planet is one of free will. As long as you remember to caress its soil with love now and again, you shall always be loved back. Any action you take, I shall always love you like the father I am. As I leave the fate of the world in your hands, I leave you with my final words. Power and glory mean nothing. For as long as you hold something precious in your hearts, the love of a mother, of a father, brother, sister, or lover. As long as you thrive to protect it, to grow stronger to ensure the protection of your precious person and of your free will, you shall truly be strong. Hai to Sama. His sons and daughters cried out, tears falling down their cheeks, memories of the years their father loved and raised them, training them to be strong to protect themselves and their family showing in their minds. Smiling at them, Naruto nodded and made his way out the door, ready for his march to the battlefield for the last time. Ready to face his death. The battle lasted 2 weeks, the army of 5,000 reduced down to half their numbers in hours, with the Oda forces only suffering minimal damage. However, by the time the war was ended, the horrific news spread fast throughout the land. Naruto Oda, the head of the Oda clan, died in battle, taking the enemy's emperor with him. His death by a blade through his heart. The land reigned for many nights, as everyone cried at the last of their ruler and king. His family, well knowing the truth, cried truthfully as they would not see their father again for many years, only when they made their final trip toward the holy lands in the sky. Naruto's son, Nobunaga Oda, took his father's throne and promised to protect the lands like his father and keep it safe like his father had done. The planet has lost their god, his time watching over it coming to an end. Nobunaga promised to the heavens, what while he may not be a god like his father, he would take on the role of one to ensure his legacy. Meanwhile, sitting on a cliff over the home of the Oda clan, Naruto smiled as he finished putting the last words of his tale in his book. Once he finished, he closed the cover. On the front, displayed a golden image of the Oda flower crest and the title under it. The last flower petal. Smiling, he sealed the book away. Standing up, he stretched. Sending the estate one last smile, he mentally promised that he would see them again. The same promise he always gave to his family whenever their last blood died. But this time it was different, for he had died before them. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes. Above him, a ray of light pierced through the dark clouds and shined down on him. It glowed brightly, making his golden hair glow as well. The last chapter ends. In a flash of bright light, Naruto Yuzumaki vanished from the lands formerly known as the Elemental Nations, never to return again, as his last thought seemed to drift into the wind. And a new one begins. Chapter 3. A new chapter begins, meetings. Present Yuzumaki residence. Dusan. I want chicken ramen. Chloe shouted out, her voice loud and proud. Pearl raised her hand high, a wide smile on her face. I want shrimp ramen. Sarah rolled her eyes at her loud sisters, though she herself have excitement shining in her eyes, the Yuzumaki love for ramen strong in her. I want miso ramen, please. She asked, smiling. Naruto laughed proudly at his daughter's antics, mentally patting himself on the back at the job well done and carrying on the praise to the glory that was ramen. Alright girls, just give me a minute. He said as he stood in front of the stove. Kneeling down, he opened the cupboards and took out 3 massive pots. His daughters have inherited his love for ramen, added in with their high metabolism, and they could eat 3 times their own weight. Look at him when he was their age. He could eat 10 bowls of Ichiraku ramen and not gain a single pound. Most people wouldn't dare invite the family to dinner if they knew that fact. It happened a few times in the past. Hey, if loving ramen or any food enough to eat in human amounts was wrong, he didn't want to be right. Placing a small genjutsu around him, thanking the log for immortality and endless chakra control exercises, he summoned 3 clones to help him prepare the ramen. In 10 minutes, the family of 4 sat around the table, the large pots in the middle of them. Grinning widely, the 4 Uzumakas clapped their hands in prayer, and once Naruto filled their bowls with the soup substance, dug in. As they ate, they have small talks. The The girls talking about what they learned in school and whatever else they did. Naruto was happy that his daughters were born in a, well, boring, simple life. As an ex-warrior, he had seen and experienced the horrors of the Age of Blood as well as the following eras. Times of war and death. Half of the children he had after Himawari, Boruto, and his other children, he had been forced to train to defend themselves on the threat of unexpected battle. He didn't want that for his 3 new children. He wanted them to experience what he never had, a real childhood. To be able to laugh freely and play around. Screw the knowledge of gods, himself included. Screw fates and prophecies. Screw monsters and shit. For just this time, he wanted to once again experience the peace he shared with Hinata and Shion and their children after the Shinobi War. To see his daughters not having to worry about learning deadly techniques or becoming shinobi, warriors. From Zetsu, he learned the littlest he could about this camp Half-Blood. Apparently it was like the Ninja Academy. Demigod children are sent there to learn survival and how to fight. And when deemed worthy, they are sent out on quests and trained to become heroes. Naruto scoffed at that. Please, the children are turned into nothing more than sources of entertainment to those arrogant gods. Some of the quests, from what he had been able to find out, had led to more than a few deaths. Yes, the elemental nations was the same, Konoha children trained from a very young age, but they started out small. That damn D-rank chores actually proved to be useful, as it prevented genin from meeting their deaths too soon, his C-turned-A mission flashing in his mind. But these demigods, they were ready by the time they set out. Hell, the gods don't even help their children if there is trouble. Just seating on their chairs and pray on their name or mothers that they survived. At least genin squads had jonin instructors. It was a good thing Naruto Yuzumaki was here to fix things. Naruto Yuzumaki, kicking arrogant or evil ass whenever needed. Foiling the plans of assholes or pranking the ass of teams. All for the price of a bowl of ramen and slice of pie. As he refilling Chloe's bowl, getting a thank you daddy. Naruto thought on his plan of action. He was assigned by his contractor to put the gods in their place. And after reading all the Greek history books he could, reviewing the actions done by the Greek deities on the mortal plane throughout their existence, having Zetsu secretly get information from their minds, he needed to come up with something that will help him take the gods down a peg. This wasn't an act of war. Nor was it a violent strike. It was a prank. Something that will embarrass, most likely scar as he planned carefully enough to make them realize something. While they may be gods, it didn't give them the right to play with mortals' lives. More than once, historical disasters had occurred only for their amusement. Example. Pandora. A once sweet and innocent girl, created by the Greek gods to be perfect in every way. Teaching her how to sing, made her very beautiful and talented. Then, they gifted her with a box or a jar, as he found out from Zeus's mind, to present to Epimetheus, titan of afterthought, and as a wife. The box jar held all the world's evil and horrors, and due to making Pandora a very curious person, they knew she would open it and unleash all that was inside. This world was showered in evil so they could punish Prometheus, titan of crafty counsel and forethought, all because he gave the humans fire. They had released death, murder, disease, all evil imaginable on the planet just because they didn't want to share. It just made him so angry. Slurping up his noodles, Naruto thought. His eyes half-lit as a glowing red shined through the cracks. Children were nothing but children. And like all naughty children needed to be punished. Taking a fish cake in his chopsticks, Naruto raised it to his open mouth. However, before he could put in his mouth, his hand halted. His brow twitched once, twice. Muttering a curse under his breath, he sighed and put his sticks down. I need to take care of something, girls. He spoke up, making the sisters look at him as he stood up. I'll be right back. He said and was about to walk off, but stopped for a second and sent them a warning look. Don't touch my ramen. He warned, pointing a threatening finger at them and walked off, his daughters giggling behind him. He stepped out his patio, closing the glass door behind him. Walking forward, he took a seat in one of the chairs outside. Sighing, he laid back, crossing his arms across his chest with a manly, childish pout on his face. I was in the middle of ramen, team. This better be good. He threatened. No one interrupted his ramen time. Hearing a scoff, he heard the chair next to him creak as the figure sat down on it. You and your ramen. Even after all this years, you're still addicted to the stuff. Now it was Naruto's turn to scoff. Of course. Ramen is the food of the heavens. The holy gift presented to mortal lands by Lady Inari herself. Its substance is more valuable than gold. More famous than any star in the cosmos. It is the stuff that holds peace in existence. That binds the love of every man, woman, and child. To go against ramen is to go against the very life itself. He declared loud and proudly. The figure stared at him in bewilderment. Well, you have become even stupider than I would thought it'd be possible. His eyes twitching, Naruto glared at him. If you came all this way to mock me, then you can just leave my house, Sasuke. He growled. How dare the bastard mock his Ramen speech. He's been practicing it for days. Sasuke Uchiha rolled his eyes at the blonde, regretting coming already. Like Naruto, Sasuke hadn't changed much since his first life in the elemental nations prior to the Fourth War. He looked to be in his mid-20s and not a decade older. His hair was flat against his head, reaching his shoulders, with a bang covering his left eye. He got tired of the blonde's chicken-ass jokes on his previous style. He wore a midnight black battle kimono with the sleeves taken off, a white undershirt, and a red sash around his waist. Around his collar were 6 white tomos. On his shoulders, he had kanji tattoos. Storm on the right and war on the left. Over his heart, he had a small Uchiha crest, a red and white fan. On his right side rested a katana sword, the hilt black, with an Uchiha fan at the butt end. Like Naruto, Sasuke had been given the honor of becoming a Shinto god. This was due to Naruto sharing half of his infinite Shinju chakra with the Uchiha, his body changing, awakening his hidden Otsutsuki genes. Though unlike his former rival, Sasuke didn't make such a big deal about his new godhood. While he appreciated the power, never having gotten rid of his Uchiha lust for power, Sasuke didn't care that much of becoming a god. Unlike Naruto, he didn't go out across worlds, taking on a responsibility over mortals. Sasuke was completely satisfied with his life. He repaid his sins, he traveled the world, saw things, got married with Sakura, as she was the only one he trusted with the repopulation of his clan was his excuse, had a daughter he could trust to lead the future of their clan, something he would come to regret down the road due to something he doesn't want to talk about, and he stayed on the planet watching over his descendants until the very end. And then went to heaven to reunite with his parents and big brother and wife, daughter, and grandchildren. Sasuke didn't care about godly responsibilities. He didn't care about taking on a domain or leading his religion. He just wanted to see things he never had before and maybe fight strong opponents to test his power. Like he had when he and Naruto faced those heretic gods, as well as warrior gods from other religions and pantheons. Sasuke was the Shinto god of judgment, weather, and war. The Handen no Tenko to Senso no Kami. He also willingly served under Susanoo no Mikoto, the Shinto god of storms. Raijin, Shinto god of thunder and lightning and also an elder god, as old as the time of Izanagi and Izanami. And Hachiman, Shinto god of war. His clan had been followers to the powerful gods for generations and he proudly served them, learning under them. His domain was the harbinger of war. He summoned massive storms in the echoes of battles and war. Symbolizing the fierce battles to take place between warriors. He also judged who was worthy of joining Senshi no Horu, Hall of Warriors, the Shinto religion equivalent of the Norse gods' Valhalla, where worthy warriors throughout the years rested and celebrated their victories or losses, being granted a warrior's feast and rest. It served as a prize for their long journeys and were given the option of resting eternally with their family or serving in under Hachiman as his soldiers. Those who served under the god of war were sent to a realm where they would continue their battles as much as they pleased. A berserker's paradise as Naruto called it. But that was not all. He also serves as the Kamigami no Shusha, messenger of the gods, between the court of the Shinto gods and Tengoku and Naruto. The whiskered god tended to spend much time doing whatever he wanted and would miss important meetings, so Sasuke was assigned as the blonde's leech to drag his ass to them when called. Which was why he was currently here. The gods have called for a meeting, Naruto. Sasuke said. Naruto frowned. He hated going to meetings. They were so boring. Even more than when he went to meetings when he was Hokage or any leader. It was always about that goddess took this from me or he or she did this, or Naruto, when will you agree to be my life partner? The last one got annoying after the 100th time, as the gods tended to fight for eternal partnership in order to gain political power. Though it was mostly used by the minor gods, as the major gods already held high standings in politics and power. Now they, mostly the male ones, went after the female goddesses to satisfy their lust. Though the only ones labeled strictly off-limits were the high goddesses, the strongest in power, not hesitating to vaporize any who dared target them. Naruto hated going to god meetings more than he used to hate going to cage meetings. As god meetings tended to last years if an agreement is not made. And now he had to go to another one, the previous one have last decades. It, of course, being about his current assignment. He prayed to Izanami Kachin that it wasn't about that again. Groaning, he stood up. Snapping his fingers, he summoned a clone to watch over the girls. Oh how he wished he could just send a clone in his place, but last time he did that, Hikari threatened to take away his privileges in use of the sacred hot springs. Damn. If he lost that, his wives would kill him for taking away their bonding time. Sighing, he nodded in defeat and the two ex-shinobis vanished in flashes of light while the clone went back inside to eat his boss's ramen. It was a good day for the clone. Olympus' main hearth. Hera tried very hard not to fiddle with her golden yellow dress as she tried to maintain a posture of confidence and stoic. And she was failing, that much anyone could tell as her eyes held nervousness and concern. And she wasn't the only one. It took a while, but Hera had been able to get Amphitrite and Persephone, her fellow partners in crime, to meet with her so they can discuss the thing that's been eating at them for around a decade. Their affair. Her fellow big wives were as fidgety as her, though not so much Persephone, given her past affair with Adonis. Maybe because this is the first time something this big has happened before. Hera though. Not only did Persephone have an affair behind Hades' back again, but also Hera, Zeus's devoted wife, and Poseidon's queen, and even more had children with the same man. If the big three were to ever discover their secret, it would no doubt destroy the earth in their rage. It was even worse when they admitted to the other to actually hold love and feelings for the blonde idiot that started all of this. This secret was treated even more important than the knowledge of the great prophecy. Only a very few know of the existence of their daughters, them being the ones who helped deliver them. For Hera, it was her sisters, Demeter, the Greek goddess of harvest and agriculture. And her eldest sister Hestia, Greek virgin goddess of hearth, home, and family. Hera trusted them more than any one other god and knew she could trust them with this little secret. She had first told them when she was to give birth to Sarah. To say Demeter and Hestia were shocked to hear that Hera had an affair was an understatement. They had always thought that even with Zeus' many faults, their sister would always be devoted to him. But it looked like they were wrong when they found out that not only had Hera let another man even touch her, let alone seduce, a term that was put mildly, but even gave birth to a child. And this was before they even discovered that the man was actually a deity from another pantheon. Still, they swore on the river Styx to never reveal this to any of the other gods, especially the big three. They could also see that Hera's eyes would show some happiness, but also regret and sadness whenever she spoke of this Naruto. For Persephone, the only one she could trust besides her mother Demeter, was her best friend Hecate, Greek goddess of magic and witchcraft, and a few of her handmaidens from the underworld. Hecate was the one who helped her give birth to Chloe, using her magic to ensure that the laws and nature of the underworld didn't keep her daughter trapped there. For as by underworld law, any soul within the underworld shall be imprisoned for all eternity. She didn't want that for her daughter, much less her husband finding out about her, and would no doubt keep her prisoner. Hades was still pissed off about the time she had an attraction to Adonis. If he was mad about her being in love with a handsome human, she would hate to see what he'd do if he found out she had a daughter with another man. Amphitrite was able to keep her daughter Pearl safe and out of Poseidon's eyes with the help of her loyal guards. She gave birth in a secret underwater cave not ever her husband knew about. There she gave birth with the assistance of her daughters, Chimapolia, goddess of violent sea storms. And the Naiads, nymphs or spirits, which preside in fountains, wells, springs, streams, brooks, rivers, and marshes. They help keep their sister's existence a secret from their father and watch over Pearl on their mother's request. They had watcher over their new little sister and her father, and they had say, the love this Naruto Yuzumaki showed his daughters was quite attractive. Anyway, as the three queens gathered together to talk, joining them were Hera's sister and Persephone's mother, Demeter, and Hestia. Demeter had made her famous cookies for the group, which Hera was thankful for as it would lessen the tense air. Grabbing a cookie, Amphitrite chose to begin this meeting. So, Hera. She began, getting the god queen's attention. Is it true what Hades told me? Has Zeus really banned the gods from seeing their children? She asked, a chill in her tone. Persephone also looked at her aunt. Hera sighed as she took a sip of her tea, the same one Naruto used to make for her. It had become her favorite and learned how to make it herself. It was very delicious and helped calm her down whenever she gets headaches from dealing with godly crap. Taking a breath, she answered. Unfortunately yes. Thanks to my idiot husband, we will not be able to see our daughters again. She admitted, a growl in her tone as her grip on her cup tightened, making it crack. The two other mothers narrowed their eyes in anger and sadness. They had only seen their daughters when they were born. Sure, they would occasionally watch over them from magic viewers, but it was not the same. They wanted to be there, meeting and playing with their daughters like real mothers. They had not been able to enjoy being real mothers with their previous children, for Hera, Ares and Hephaestus were nothing but failures, and she hadn't seen her daughter Hebe, the only real child she had with Zeus, in a long time. Persephone was still trying to make peace with her daughters, Melano and Macaria. And Amphitrite rarely saw her daughter Chimapolia as she wanders the abandoned seas after Poseidon banished her because he found her presence disruptive and she hated her son Triton for his arrogance. The birth of Sarah, Chloe, and Pearl was their second chance to raise their children the right way, especially with a father like Naruto. They were ecstatic for when the blonde Shinto would reveal the truth and heritage to the girls and the mothers could reunite with their daughters. But this new Decrethy had to hold themselves back from finding Zeus and ripping him to shred. That bastard. Now they could never see their daughters again. Demeter and Hestia looked at the three queens in pity. Demeter knew what it was like to never see your daughter again. When she had heard that Persephone was to stay in the underworld forever, it broke her heart. However, she was lucky as she could reunite with her daughter only in the seasons of summer and spring. Hestia was the goddess of family, so it hurt her, both emotionally and physically, for this to happen. She wished she could have done more to change her brother's mind, but even she didn't have the political and/or actual power to defy or overrule the laws of the fates. The best she could do was ensure that the young demigods were protected. Unfortunately, that was all she could do as her rule in the court was taken away. She frowned in sadness as she looked at her sister and niece. She and Demeter shared a glance. Maybe they should speak to their mother on this. Gritting her teeth in anger, Persephone tried to calm herself by grabbing a cookie and shoving it into her mouth. However, the delicious and mouthwatering flavor could only do so much. Sighing, she tried to distract herself on a different subject. And unfortunately, the subject her mind picked was on a certain blonde. She closed her eyes as she felt her cheeks burn light. She would be lying if she said that she didn't miss Naruto. It was strange. In such a short time, the blonde had affected her mind and feeling more and faster than Adonis had. With Adonis, it was because she found him extremely attractive. But with Naruto didn't know what to think. Yes, he was attractive as well, with a wild look to him. But it was more than that. The whiskered blonde had been able to get her out of her sad mood very fast and make her smile and laugh with his insane antics and silly humor. Just remembering the tales he told her about the pranks he did as a child still make her smile. She had always held an immense anger at Hades for not only kidnapping her, but also tricking her into staying in the underworld for eternity. When she had spent her 6 months of freedom in the mortal world, they had become the most enjoyable time in her life for when she met Naruto. There was a light around him that just made one feel like everything was okay and gave your whole body warmth. She wondered if Hera and Amphitrite had felt the same when they were with him. Now that I think about it, we never did talk about our times with Naruto after we dropped out daughters with him. She frowned. She didn't know what to think on the fact all three of them had essentially slept and bared children with the same guy. A part of her thought that it would be the same as it was between her and Aphrodite with Adonis, fighting over the same guy. She wouldn't deny that a part of her heart longed to feel the touch of the blonde Shinto again. And not in the sense of sexual touch. Her time with Naruto was fantastic, amazing even, and she unconsciously longed to be in his arms again. Sure, she was still pissed at the fact that not only did he keep the fact that he was a god from her, but also that he had had multiple lovers and wives, to which he still saw with his access to enter his religion territory of heaven. A part of her wondered what he thought of her with the fact that he had, and still did in a sense, wives awaiting for him to return. Did he see her as a consort? A heart to pour his lust at? Did he actually hold feeling for her like she did with him? And more importantly, how can those women actually be okay with the fact that they are actually sharing their husband? Naruto had revealed to the three goddesses when they confronted him that it was actually his first wife, a Hinata Hyuga Yuzumaki, and his first mate, Kurama Yuzumaki, who had given him the idea and permission to gain multiple lovers and wives. Or eternal mates, as the blonde puts them, which she still didn't understand what he meant. It just boggled her mind. How can a woman actually allow her husband to get more lovers? Sure, the gods here do it all the time, but it was against their wife's approval or knowledge. For a wife to know of their husband's affair and actually be okay with it was Urano's falling from his domain. Naruto had given the offer to actually speak with Hinata and Kurama face to face themselves if they wished to. Right now, Persephone was considering it. Because the only way a wife would agree for such a thing was if Naruto had her under some kind of mind control. And either Naruto was a master at deception and only acted like a lovable idiot, or it was for real. She was getting a headache. Complicated issue aside, she needed to think of a way around this new law and be able to see her little Chloe again. Maybe Naruto would have an idea. I just need to contact him. She thought. Amphitrite was having the same thoughts. Her marriage to Poseidon was believed to be the grandest celebration ever held under the ocean, though that was not what she thought. At times, she felt like she was merely a prize for him. After the former defeated and replaced Aeneas, the elder Titan child of Uranos and Gaia and Titan ruler of the ocean, many of the beautiful Nereids sought to be his wife. Amphitrite on the other hand, didn't desire such a thing and kept her distance from the god. Unfortunately, that had the opposite effect and only made Poseidon want her even more. Poseidon had tried everything he could to get her to fall for him and accept his proposal, but she refused every time. It was then that the god switched techniques. He pretended to go into a deep depression, hoping to get her to agree in guilt. Delphin, the god of dolphins, and one of Poseidon's lieutenants went to her and persuaded her to accept his marriage proposal. Finally, she agreed. And with her marriage to the god of the sea, she became the goddess of the sea. In the centuries she served as goddess of the sea, she served more of the ruler than even her husband, who would just go into the mortal world on vacation getting human woman and female beings pregnant while she tended to the overlooking of the entire ocean. Like his brothers, Poseidon though more with his than he did with his brain. She had lost count of the number of women her husband seduced and impregnated with his lust. Demeter, Medusa, who her husband raped in Athena's temple. Gaia, numerous nymphs, and many mortal women. So while her dear husband was getting laid, she was stuck doing all the work. And let's not forget the latest issue of her husband's newest son. Honestly, she didn't have a problem with her husband's children, except for Triton, the arrogant bastard. After all, why should she be angry at them when it was Poseidon who couldn't control himself? Like her fellow queens, her meeting with the blonde Shinto god that was Naruto Yuzumaki was a nice break from her constant headache. For many days a week, she loved cuddling with him, watching the sunset from a high cliff overlooking the ocean. Living underwater for all her life, she never got the opportunity to watch the sunset or sunrise, so doing so was a great chance. She also loved staring at her consort's eyes. His deep, magnificent blue eyes that could put her home to shame. Naruto was so different from many male gods from any religion. He wasn't arrogant. An idiot, clumsy, and stubborn, yes, but never arrogance or boasting. For a young god, whose experience as a deity was shorter than her own, Naruto took his responsibilities like a child. He didn't have to worry about paperwork or leading hundreds of children and servants. He always talked about his adventures and travels back when she first thought him to be a simple human. Naruto. Simple. Those two words just didn't fit together. The blonde tended to take things to the extreme, even when in doing simple things. She remembered when he took her to a carnival. He declared he would get her this giant stuffed dolphin, and no matter how many times he missed, he never gave up. She feared he would lose all his money if she did stop him. But he was a stubborn fool, in a good way. And when he actually did take down the targets and get the toy, he presented it to her with this cute large grin that stretched his strange whisker marks. He looked so cute. One thing the three goddesses could agree on was that Naruto tended to spoil them when they had separately dated him. Be it simple but gorgeous jewelry, to candy and carnival prizes, the blonde would do all he could to express his feelings to them. He was simply one of a kind. Even when they had approached him on the issue, Amphitrite could remember the love he had for each of them in his eyes. Amphitrite actually had a small ability to sense another's feelings. Not as powerful as Aphrodite, but enough that she could sense the true love Naruto had for them. In fact, the amount of love in the blonde's heart could overpower even the goddess of love. His heart was so large. She could barely detect any source of hate in him. It was as if Naruto was incapable of not loving. Like he just saw the good in people. She could also see that he also loved many others before them, and not in the sense of merely sexual attraction. But genuine and pure love. The kind of love only a husband and father could give. Like Persephone, knowing that the man she could possibly hold feelings for, one who had proven to be better and less selfish than her husband, hold multiple loves confused her. Greek gods were very territorial on the things they hold, and sharing was used as a very last resort after going to war. Even now, a part of her that desired Naruto wanted to keep him for herself. Not only for her sake, but the sake of her daughter. She had watched her daughter Pearl from a distance or through water surfaces as within her power as a water major deity, she could use any body of water as a one-way mirror. And when she couldn't, she would have one of her loyal servants or daughters watch over her. She truly wanted to be in Pearl's life as a mother, along with a father that would love and care for her. But what about the other two demigods, and Hera and Persephone? She didn't want to declare war and drag her daughter into it. She could actually image a life where she was sitting in a comfortable couch in Naruto's living room, playing with Pearl. At the side were Hera and Persephone playing with their own daughters, while Naruto watched them with a smile. She faintly recalled talking to Naruto one last time before she left after dropping of Pearl. When she asked him how he was able to handle a family such as his, with multiple lovers and children, he just shrugged. If you asking how I could possibly have so many lovers, well, I love them, and they love me. It's not as complicated as it seems. While I may be an immortal, love is not something that can be waited on forever. I don't believe in one-night stands or sex nights. Love is something that should be cherished and cared for. If I love someone, I don't hesitate to tell them, or it's gone forever. I've learned a long time ago and don't want to make the same mistake again. Sure, it might seem strange for me to be able to have more than one wife, but I would rather be able to make everyone happy than to cause pain when there was a way to prevent it. I had once nearly lost friendship because I hurt someone who loved me with her whole heart even when I was already taken. I have a harem as most tend to call it, not because I merely want to collect women, but because I know that their love is real and pure. Sure, more may call me a pervert and other things, but on my long life, I learned that I would rather keep a hold on love than lose it forever. Believe my words when I say that I love each and every one of my wives and mates, and no one is above the other for my affection. And now this, Trite-chan. I'm not the kind of guy to have a child with someone just for the lust. I had sex with each one of you because I love you. I still do. Even if you do not accept my feeling as you are married, I will always love you. no matter what. That last part nearly brought her to tears in regret. She felt like she had used Naruto the night they had sex for her selfish reasons. Amphitrite frowned in thought. She knew that she loved Naruto, maybe not enough right now to instantly join his family, but it was much more than she had felt for Poseidon, and the thought of raising a family with him lingered eternally in her mind. Still, she needed to think on this before she made any decision. Hera sighed as she looked at the conflicted looks on her sisters' faces. Like her, they were no doubt reviewing their marriage and the blonde who started all of this. Closing her eyes, she took another sip of her tea. She needed to find a way around this stupid law. She wanted to see her daughter. Maybe we can get Foxy to help. Juno advised. Hera mentally raised a brow. And what would he be able to do? Gods from different religions can't interfere in the business of one another. She reminded, surprised that a Roman counterpart would ever suggest something that she knew was forbidden. She felt Juno shrugged nonchalant in her half of the mind. We're talking about the guy that was able to not only seduce and impregnate the three god queens, but also get them to fall in love with him at the same time. And I get the feeling Naruto would be able to do the impossible. Besides, I want to see my niece. Hera was confused at the last part. You niece? We're the same person, so wouldn't Sarah be your daughter too? She asked. Looking up, she raised a brow when she saw Persephone and Amphitrite faces suddenly turn raised. What's up with them? Yeah. She flinched when the sudden shout of the embarrassingly childish, or Naruto-ish, Juno echoed in her head. Looks like I'm not the only Roman goddess joining the party. Eyes widening when she figured out when Juno meant, Hera groaned and buried her face in her hands. Tengoku Council of Gods. Naruto groaned and buried his face in his hands. I hate you, Izanami-Kazan. He mentally grumbled, he could just see the Shinto high goddess laughing at him. Evil woman. After beings dragged to Tengoku, he had to wait 15 minutes for the other gods and goddesses of the Shinto religion to appear. He then had to wait until everyone gave their name and titles, as well as their domains like they did in every meeting. And then came the topic for summoning a meeting, and to his dread. It was about his current assignment. Yes, he knew that Hikari, Yami, and Shai, the daughters of Izanagi and Izanami, and the three primary goddesses and the strongest under their mother, were not happy that he, their favorite champion, had taken a temporary residence in Greek deity territory, but come on. Did they have to bring his daughters this? He shot a glare at the amused Sasuke who sat on his chair next to him. Rolling his eyes, he leaned his heart on his fist as he half listened at the ruckus the Shinto deities were bringing up and curses sent to the Greek gods. Sheesh, he knew the two pantheons didn't like one another, seriously, they were acting like children. Sighing, he decided to distract himself with his thoughts. Even after all this time, it was still hard to believe Yuzumaki Naruto, once a young idiotic still-is kid who always shouted about being Hokage, was done the impossible had become a god. His life went taking adventure and excitement to a whole new level. Rescuing princes and rulers, beating down idiots who wanted to rule the world, running from massive machines and/or animals who wanted nothing more than to eat him, was now like a summer job to him. Just because he transcended immense levels of power didn't mean his luck had gotten any better. Actually, it's now worse. He would bet a large amount of his Ramen collection that he was going to get dragged into a war by those idiot Greeks sooner or later. His eyes moving, he took the time to examine each of the Shinto gods. Unlike the Greeks, the Shintos didn't have deities for basically anything and everything. Shintos focused more on military and warfare, like the Romans. Sure, they were a bit old school as kids would put it, but sometimes, old was good. He first looked at the primary three Hikari, Shai, and Yami. They were the strongest of the second generation of Shinto gods, being created by Izanagi and Izanami. They was stronger than even Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, no doubt about it. In fact, unlike the three Greek brothers, the sisters' power was strong enough to create worlds from nothing. Hikari, also known as Hikari no Megumi, the Shinto goddess of light and life. She was the eldest of the sisters, made the ruler of Tengoku with an army of angels, and the first to bring light to the world. Hikari was perhaps the most gorgeous woman Naruto has ever seen, challenged only by her sisters. She had long gold blonde hair that reached her shapely rear. Her beautiful light blue eyes shined with love, happiness, but most of all power, daring anyone to challenge her rule. She wore a pure white kimono that hugged her slim figure, pressing tightly on her deep breasts, with a teasing amount of her cleavage in view. Naruto always felt like he was being teased whenever Hikari would bend her body forward a bit when the two of them were meeting, expressing more of her cleavage at him. She wore a bit of jewelry on her head, a lace made of gold framing her crown, and small diamond earrings. Yami, known as Yami no Megami, Shinto goddess of darkness, was like a darker version of Hikari. Whereas the light goddess had soft pale cream skin that seemed to glow when hit with light, Yami had a darker matcha tone. Her hair was a very dark, nearly black, brown that one wouldn't tell unless they were really close. It reached down to her waist, with a bang covering her right eyes, giving her a sexy look. Her eyes were a crimson red that shined in mischief, chaos-seeking, and lust. The latter mostly targeted at the whiskered blonde. At times, whenever he was alone with Yami, he always got the feeling like she was holding herself back from raping him. Which is why he always brought Sasuke with him to use as a meat shield while he escaped. Yami wore a dark royal purple kimono that hung just off her shoulders, displaying a wide top view of the cleavage of her DT cup breasts, the largest of the sisters. She didn't wear much jewelry, simply red ruby earrings and a necklace with a dark black crystal. On her plush and kissable lips, she had red lipstick. Yami was a physical tease and would take any opportunity she could to press whole front on him, pressing her breasts on him. Naruto was glad he was a god, or he would have died from blood loss a long time ago. Even now he could see the goddess giving him lustful looks, making him gulp. Yami was the ruler of Jigoku, the Shinto underworld where sinful souls were punished severely. Yami was a sadistic woman who actually got off on punishing those she didn't like. So Naruto always made sure to keep his distance whenever she was in her mood. But she wasn't all bad. Other than being a major tease, Yami was actually a kitten when she was alone with her sisters or mother, and a few times when he and her hanged out. Shai, also called the Shinigami, was the Shinto goddess of death, who his people had once prayed as their major deity in their death-filled world. Unlike the old images drawn by his people, Shai was not some demonic entity with dried-up pale purple skin, shaggy long white hair, and a demonic face. He had found out that it was actually a costume she used to prevent humans from seeing her real appearance. No, she was actually a beautiful woman with pale pearl white skin as smooth as silk, long silver white hair that flowed down to her back like silk, with a few bangs framing her heart-shaped face. Her eyes were a moon-like silvery pale yellow with black sclera. She wore a midnight black kimono with a bit of her CC breasts visible in cleavage. She wore no jewelry, but had black lipstick and black nail paint. Shai usually had an impassive look on her face, finding meetings very boring. Shai was the ruler of the Shinigami Corps, agents under her who worked to find any lost soul and either sent them to Tengoku or Jigoku. Like Naruto, she likes to miss meetings. She was actually the one who gave the Yuzumaki clan the Shiki Fujin technique and Shinigami mask, which summons her their realm, for her own entertainment. When Naruto questioned her on why she would do that, she would just shrug and saw that she was bored. Naruto had first met the three when he first became a god, being congratulated on his new status and saying that they were impressed with his action. As he trained in his new godly powers and immense levels of chakra, he got to know them and would admit that he actually liked the women. With his growing experience with the feelings and the workings of the famine mind which took a long time, Naruto had begun taking in the hints from them showing affection and lust at him. While he was flattered and honored at have actually been able to capture the hearts of the impossible goddesses, he was scared of what would happen if he released his restraints and let his hormones out. He could sense the pheromones coming off the three, as well as several other goddesses aimed at him, and it drove him crazy. Now he knew what Sasuke felt when he was being chased by his fangirls. Yes, he had had many wives before and a few flings with other goddesses, he didn't know if he could handle a full-on relationship with so many. He could barely handle his mortal wives. Not to mention that he was raising his newest daughters and trying to figure out how he should handle the whole Greek god assignment without causing a war. Focusing back on the meeting, he signed as he listened to Yami, stating that he shouldn't be socializing with the Greek idiots. The meeting room was similar to the meeting room the Greek gods had from the image Zetsu showed him. All the gods were seated in a circle in thrones of their own design and color. At the head of the circle were three high thrones made of pure gold. These were Hikari, Yami, and Shai's thrones. Naruto's own throne was colored a burning orange-red made of wood and leaves, giving of a nature vibe, symbolizing his connection to nature, and served as a tribute to his first home, Konoha. On the back were lifelike carvings of the faces of the 9 Biju, and on the top was a display of his godly symbol. A 9-pointed gold sun with a small swirl in the middle. Above his head was a wood statue of a floral bud. Given that this was god business, Naruto was in his official god clothes. He was wearing a white full-length Shinto priest robe, a jimi, with a row of 6 black magatama on his high collar, the end of the sleeves, and bottom rim, with the center rim lined black. Wrapped around his neck was a long black scarf. Sitting back on his chair with his head on his fist and knees crossed, it showed his black baggy pants with the ends tugged into his black ankle-high boots. Leaning on the side of his throne was his Shakugan staff, made of black indestructible metal. He didn't turn to his true god form, or at least one of his forms, as he had gotten used to the heavy feeling of the energy of the other gods. Next to him, Sasuke sat in his black metal throne chair, with a purple cushion. On the back was his god symbol, a carving of his clan's fan with a black crescent moon in the middle. He also had lifelike carvings of snakes wrapping around the throne. He looked at the person on his other side when he heard an amused laugh. He rolled his eyes at her. Oh sure, of course she finds my predicament humorous. Sighing, he decided to try and put an end to this. Sitting up straight, he cleared his throat to get Evain's attention. Listen, I know that you guys have problems with the Greek gods, but it was my decision to accept this task, and I'm doing it. He stressed. Hikari frowned at her favorite man with a concerned look. Please understand, Naruto-kun. The Greek gods have proven more than once to let their arrogance and power go to their heads. Having you in their realm would no doubt make them believe this to be an act of war. While we may be slightly stronger than them, they hold more numbers. Plus, my sisters and I are merely concerned for your safety. We can sense a large change in power to come very soon in that world. We cannot tell what it is, but we need to be cautious. Naruto nodded. He too had sensed strange pulses of dark power ripple the earth at random times, too fast for him to track. I do understand your worry, Hikari. However, in my time in that world, I had gained friends, and most of all, a family. The grunt made him look at one of the gods. Yes, your daughters. Ones you had with Greek goddesses. The three queens. He stressed. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the male god. Is there a problem, Raijin? He demanded. Raijin was the Shinto god of the sea, usually taking the form of a massive dragon serpent with diamond-hard blue scales and a body length that stretches for miles. However, for the meeting he took on a human from, having long blue hair, gold eyes, and wore dark blue armor. Naruto didn't like the sea god. He was arrogant and always tried to challenge him into a fight to prove which of the two was stronger, even though Naruto won most of the time, though barely against the older and more experienced deity. Raijin growled at the blonde. Your actions with the goddesses has shifted the balance of power between pantheons. There is a reason why children between religion deities had been deceased. The other gods shared a glance. It was true, last time two beings if different pantheons led to the birth of a child, it led to a war for power. Most would take this a plan to obtain power and a declaration of war, especially those Greeks. Naruto let out a beastly snarl of anger. His eyes flashed crimson as he glared at the sea god. My daughters are not born for the purpose of power, but from love. He stated. Raijin only scoffed. Love? Please, like those idiot Greek gods would actually feel anything that wasn't lust or greed. If it isn't power they wouldn't give a damn. Like you? Naruto countered, making the dragon man growl at him. Alright enough. Hikari ordered, making Naruto stand down, as well as Raijin, though the latter was reluctant. Naruto, I know that you love your daughters and don't want them to put them in a situation. But I have to somewhat agree with Raijin. Naruto shot her a betrayed look. She quickly put her hands up. I'm not saying you did what you did for power. I know very well that's not the kind of person you are. However, this still holds problem. Your daughters not only hold fragments and the blood of Greek goddesses, but also the blood and partial power of a Shinto god, one that who himself holds the power of a primordial being, the Shinju. As we all know, the Shinju was one of the ancient artifacts created by the Kodomatsu Kami, distinguished heavenly gods, the very first primordial Shinto gods in existence. It's older than even us, as old as Izanagi-sama and Izanami-sama. Raijin scoffed. And its power is given to a brat. He grumbled, getting a glare from Naruto for being called a brat. Also glaring at the dragon for a sec, Hikari continued. As I was saying. Naruto, your daughters not only hold fractions of the Shinju's power as far as we know, but also the blood of Greek goddesses. Their power could be immense, making them targets for those who would seek to use their power. Naruto growled threateningly, his Shinshigen flashing. If anyone dared harm his precious daughters, he would rip them apart. Sasuke glanced at former teammate and rival, sensing a spike in his chakra. He knew Naruto, as his job as his best friend. The blonde was very protective about his family. And he wasn't the only one protective of the girls. After all, he was the girl's godfather. The flames of Jigoku would freeze over before I let anything harm my daughters. Naruto declared, making Hikari smile. She blushed slightly as she really liked when Naruto goes into protective father mode. It was quite a turn on for her. Naruto-kun. He looked at the deity at his side. We all know how much you love your daughters. Just know that if ever needed assistance, I'm there for you. Naruto smiled. Thank you, Inari. He thanked the fox goddess. Inari Akami, the Shinto goddess of rice and fertility, as well as the fox goddess. Like Hikari and her sisters, Inari was a very beautiful, breathtaking woman with dark blue hair tied in a braid that reached her shapely rear. Her gold eyes glowed with vertical slit pupils. She wore a red and white kimono that showed much of her D-cup cleavage visible and stopped very short under her rear, leaving much of her legs visible, and a pair of blue sandals on her feet. On top of her head were 2 twitching fox ears, and coming from her tailbone were 9 silver fox tails. Like Naruto, she had whisker marks on her cheeks. Unlike Kurama, who only had the appearance of a 9-tailed fox, Inari was the real deal. Her power could make Kurama look like a kid in comparison. Naruto was actually great friends with Inari. After all, Inari was the creator of the food of the gods. Ramen. He had literally asked her for her hand in marriage when he found out, to which she actually agreed. Naruto smiled and placed a hand over Inari's. He gently squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Inari-hime." Inari just smiled back at her mate. She really liked Naruto. Back when he was a child, she had watched over him. Naruto had a true heart of a fox. He was mischievous, liked pranks, and was loyal to a fault. She had fallen for the young blonde ever since, even before Hikari, Shai, and Yami did. Naruto was her foxy warrior. She had been there when he was still a young god in training, helping him tap into his primal skills. Through the time they spent together, they grew close. They mated and hopefully would even have children one day. Naruto looked around at the other Shinto gods gathered at the room. Some of them he made allies with. Others were neutral and a few hated him for once being human. At the top were of course Hikari, Shai, and Yami. Going around the room counterclockwise was Amaterasu Omi Kami, Shinto goddess of the sun. She was the fourth-rated most beautiful woman in Tengoku, equal to the three sisters in Inari. Even Sasuke blushed when he saw her. She had love-raven silk hair that flowed down to her waist. She was wearing a black kimono with a red sash and red flames on the bottom. Her skin was pearl white with red lipstick. She was sitting on a red throne with flame carvings. Next to her was Aim no Yuzume, Shinto goddess of dawn. She had long brown hair with dark brown eyes, wearing a gold kimono. Her throne was gold-colored with a half-sun carving on the back of the throne. After her was Fujin, Shinto god of wind. Unlike most in the room, Fujin was actually a big green oni with a bag filled with wind slung over his back. His throne was green with swirl designs. Sitting on a dark red throne was a man of large size. He had strong muscles wearing red armor with spikes on the shoulder. On his back and sides were many weapons. His head was hidden in an oni-style helmet with glowing red eyes burning through the eye holes. He was Hachiman, also known as Hachiman Shin or Yuwata no Kami, the Shinto god of war. His throne was made of black marble rock with carvings of swords coming from the back. Sitting next to him was Inari, then Naruto, and Sasuke. On Sasuke's right was Omikane, the deity of wisdom and intelligence. His appearance was that of an old man. He was one of the wisest of the gods, often giving advice and counsel to the other Shinto gods. His throne was made of wood. Following on was Raijin, the Shinto god of thunder and lightning. He was Fujin's brother, being a large red oni. Behind him was a large wide golden ring with circular drums on it, with 3 circling tomos on each of them. His throne was red with lightning bolt designs. Like his brother, Fujin, Raijin was an elder god, as old as Izanagi and Izanami. Next to him was Raijin. Next was Sujin, the Shinto god of water. Sujin actually the lieutenant of Raijin. He was a light blue dragon in his true appearance. In his human form, he had light blue shoulder-length hair and light blue armor. His throne was similar to Raijin, blue with wave designs. After him was Susanoo no Mikoto, the Shinto god of storms. Brother of Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi, Susanoo was a mature man with dark raven hair, dark eyes, and a white and gold lining attire. His throne was a gray color with gold lightning and clouds carved at the bottom. Lastly, sitting to the left of Shin, was the Shinto goddess of the moon, Tsukiyomi, or Tsukiyomi. She was the twin sister of Amaterasu, but while Amaterasu had long dark hair, Tsukiyomi's hair was a shining silver, her eyes were silver to Amaterasu's burning red. She wore a silver and blue kimono with a golden moon in the back. Her throne was like it was made directly from the night sky, black marble with shining stars on it. While their numbers were lesser than that of the Greek gods, the Shinto held power and military forces and mines. "There is one thing I wish to know." Amaterasu spoke up. She looked at Naruto. "Naruto Domo. How exactly do you wish to strike the Greeks without having a war break out?" she asked, making everyone look at the blonde god. Naruto leaned back on his chair, he placed his elbows on the armrests. His hands tangled together, he placed them over his mouth. His pose similar to the one he saw his Hokage take many times when he was younger. Holding a thinking expression for a few minutes, he then opened his eyes. His Dijutsu flashing, the 9 tomos spinning around hypnotically. "When I was a human and a child, I had a great strategic mind when it came to pulling pranks. Every move, planned. Every moment used correctly, never wasted. Through the 4th war, that mind only grew. What I must do is not an act of war. No, it is simply a prank. The Greeks have grown arrogant. It is time someone knocked them off their high horse. They all have weaknesses. Skeletons in their closet they don't want to see brought into public. Well, I think it's time they got a visit from the old master of pranks," he declared, wide and wicked grin on his face, making Sasuke sigh and Fasipum and Inari giggle and clap, excited to see her favorite blonde pull pranks again. Hikari, Shai, and Yami shared a smile. They almost pitied the Greeks when Naruto pranked them almost. If there was one thing Naruto was great at, it was messing with those who deserved to get pranked. Soon the meeting ended and many gods left to go back to their domains. Sasuke was going back to see his family. Naruto was going with him, wanting to see his family again, but he first needed to check on a certain someone. Opening up a dimensional portal, he walked through. After a second of darkness, he stepped into a new location. A place of nature. Trees as high as skyscrapers covering the area like a jungle. A realm that would put Mount Mamboku to shame. Smiling at the immense feeling of nature energy being absorbed into him, he looked around. He saw animals of any and every species around, be them earth native or otherworldly. Moving on, he vanished with a yellow flash and appeared in front of a comfortable-looked compound. Not too big, but not too small. He spotted a small group sitting on the front yard, relaxing. Smiling, he approached them. Seeing him, one of them stood up to greet him. Asatsu, Ado. Greetings, husband. Naruto smiled at the woman. Approaching her, he grabbed her hand and brought it up to his lips, planting a soft kiss on the back of the hand, bringing a soft smile to the woman. He looked up at her eyes, ocean blue meeting pale lavender. Standing up, he gently kissed her forehead. Pulling back, he smiled at her. Hello, Kagaya Koi. He greeted his wife, the Usagi no Megami Rabbit Goddess. What if Juubi Naruto meets Hera Olympians? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.